young people from all over the globe are joining up to fight for the future.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part, too.
They're doing their part. Are you? Join the mobile infantry and save the world. Service guarantees citizenship.
Okay, Hot Wampa episode. I guess this is 51. I mean, I know iTunes are starting to ditch support for numbering systems, so we're going to be dropping the numbering system as well because there's no point in using it anymore. Hopefully the feed will still show episodes chronologically when it's accessed through iTunes. It's one of the things, I guess, we have to pander to iTunes and Apple. They are the biggest provider of podcasts that are out there.
Yeah, so will it be just listed by the name of the main feature, I guess, of the episode, Dave?
It will be, and there'll also be... iTunes are going to be opening it up in categories, so when I submit now to the feed, there's two different boxes I have to tick. One is episodic and one is bonus. So it segregates it. So something like this, which is a standard episode of Hot Wampa, will go into episodic. And if it's something like a special, like a London Film and Comic Con special or a memorandum special or something like that, it'll go under bonus. I think the feed through iTunes will still show in chronological order as we've released them, but I think it's just going to give you a category bar so you can click on the categories of bonus or episodic to differentiate between the two, and it will just show those. I mean, I think subscribers should still get them all anyway.
Well, let's fingers crossed it works well.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them things. It's a pain in the neck because for me, it fills the forms in for iTunes. It's just more stuff to have to do at the end of the day. But I guess, like I said, you know, what can you do about it? They're the ones with the power in all this.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. It's quite nice, actually, to get back to a sort of normal episodic episode of Hot Wampa. Feels like a little while since we've done one, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels like one of those weekends when you haven't got to cut the grass or go anywhere and you can just sit at home and enjoy the television and newspaper or something like that. You know, it feels like we're back to normal.
Yeah, it does feel a bit sort of, I don't know, anticlimactic than that. I think we recently it's felt like we've done so few episodic episodes, but so many special episodes that now we're doing an episodic episode. It feels like a special episode.
It's always special for me, Dave.
Yeah, I've just confused myself anyway. Which means we've got the normal structure on this, housekeeping and all the things that we have to go into that. Star Wars news, Force Friday, there's a lot going on there. I don't know that we're going to try and cover that in too much detail because so much of the internet, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all over the show really is sort of, this is what's for sale on the shelves at Force Friday. It's more expensive here. It's more choice there. Oh, look what I've brought, etc., etc. And I think there's just so much merchandise and stuff has been released. I don't know really that we're going to go too far into the Force Friday thing, are we?
No, I mean, we'll just highlight 2 or 3 bits and pieces that we liked or seen, or any sort of potential nods to characters or new information about The Last Jedi. I guess we've got a little bits and pieces.
We can always extrapolate sometimes from the merchandise, little sort of spoilers or little Easter eggs about the upcoming film. I think the thing is with so much Star Wars on the screen at the moment, I mean, not just The Last Jedi coming up, and we know we're going to be getting trailers and stuff coming up soon for all that, but also with the 4th and I believe the final season of Star Wars Rebels and stuff, there's enough screen Star Wars to talk about, I think, without getting too far into the merchandise. And I think it's probably better if we leave the sort of Force Friday and the merchandising to everyone else that's covered it on the internet, because there is no shortage of it out there at the moment. Showcase, Starship Troopers, a good fun film. I think it's really probably the last one of the Paul Verhoeven sci-fi trilogy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I saw a Paul Verhoeven film recently, which we'll speak about during the showcase. So yeah, he seemed to have dropped it, hasn't he? He seemed to have gone back to sort of smaller films, more, I don't know, personal films to him. But, I mean, this was 1997, so 20 years now.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it should be 20 years. I rewatched it Friday, and it still, to a degree, feels quite fresh to me.
Yeah.
I mean, satirically and stuff, maybe it's themed on the time it was made, but I think visually, in terms of the quality of the film visually, I think it still stands up. I mean, that sort of stuff really we need to get into during the showcase. And finally, back to the normality, or if there's ever anything normal about it, of local news.
Yeah, you've got a couple of bizarre stories, haven't you?
And I was just saying to Mark off air before we started recording about how we've got so many stories saved up for local news that basically we can't really cover them all. It's been a crazy summer, and I think it's going to be a case of bringing up the highlights that we can do in local news when we get round to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's where we are. So, with no further ado, I guess we should get into a bit of housekeeping.
Okay.
Hockey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good podcast at your side. You're listening to Hot Wampa.
Okay, listener feedback. It's nice to be able to address a bit of this. This one came our way on the 15th of August at 24 minutes past midnight. It's from Jeff Tilley, and Jeff wrote, "Guys, just wanted to let you know how the music piece Mars, Bringers of Wonder," isn't Mars the bringer of war?
Yeah, the god of war, isn't it? Yeah.
That's possibly wrong. I mean, I'm not going to dispute our listener. Is related to the science fiction film TV genre. I first heard this on a Jeff Love Sci-Fi Hits LP I bought as a teen. This was when I first became aware of the Quatermass connection, not having seen it back in the late 70s. Darn, I could have won a t-shirt knowing that. So Mars Bringer of War is in the Quatermass movies.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, I haven't seen them for a long time, but...
No, I've not seen them for a long time. Yeah. I mean, Jeff talks about his teens in the late 70s. I guess Jeff is perhaps a bit older than you or I. I mean, I can remember watching the Quatermass movies back in the 80s, but as a child, probably 7 to 8 years old, and not really understanding what was going on, because I think it was kind of, to me, it seemed a little bit all over the place. Something about a spaceship being found underground London, and they excavate it, and I don't know, there's dead sort of locust things in it, and in the end there's a devil, or there's a representation of Satan, and they managed to defeat it by earthing it with a crane to the ground. And I mean, it was all a bit all over the place for me personally, but that might be because I was looking at it as a small boy, where perhaps, you know, Jeff, being a bit older and his teens kind of thing, could appreciate it a little bit better than what I was able to. Yeah,
and I think it was probably on BBC Two, one of those 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock movies at the same time as The Day the Earth Stood Still, This Island Earth, that kind of thing.
Is it sci-fi or is it horror?
It's difficult. I mean, I guess it's sci-fi. The element is, you know, sci-fi, isn't it? But it was more, I don't know, more scary than your average sci-fi film at the time.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I don't know, maybe it'd be worth doing a future showcase on it. I mean, we've gone back in time a bit in showcase subjects, haven't we? With like the Day the Earth Stood Still and what have you.
Yeah, that's right. And Invasion of the Body Snatchers, we went for that as well, didn't we? So
yeah, maybe that's one that's worth penciling in to consider some point in the future as a showcase.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, Jeff goes on how he could have won a t-shirt knowing that. We would have honoured that. If Jeff had entered with the answers and he'd been first or got the most answers, he could have won the t-shirt. I think it might have been a bit of a logistical haul to get it shipped out, because Jeff's from Australia.
Yeah.
So he may have had to have waited for DHL or someone to drop it off for him, but we certainly would have honoured that. Jeff goes on to say, "Still, I thought there'd be someone out there with the answers, as I listened a few weeks after the broadcast date and felt I was too slow." It's always worth having a punt on feedback or competitions and stuff, because you'd be surprised, Jeff, at how difficult it is to get feedback in, or how difficult it is to encourage people to take part in the show. Why that is, we don't know. We're still having a look at a bit of self-examination over that. So yeah, anything like that we run, it's always worth, you know, getting back to us and getting straight back to us, even if you don't think you're first, because the odds are that it possibly hasn't had a lot of feedback anyway, and you're still in with a good shot, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes even the answers we do get in might not be 100% correct. And so you take that into consideration, don't you? You know, when we receive it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Stephen Waterhouse came in with some good answers and we thought he'd scooped it. And then Dean came out of nowhere with, you know, after Stephen and got one that Stephen didn't get. So it goes to show. So it's always up for grabs. I sometimes wonder if everyone thinks, oh, somebody will already have entered that, so I won't bother. And everybody thinks that, and then nobody enters. So it's always worth having a punt on anything like that we run.
Yeah, no, you're always fair. I mean, we're always fair, aren't we? You know, we give people the benefit of the doubt, and if they're as close to the correct answer, they get the T-shirt. So. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, obviously, if something's too tenuous, we've got to draw the line. But I think if the theme's right, yeah. Anyway, well, there you go. This podcast is a reflection of my interest, much like the mag Geeky Monkey that you'd mentioned. Alas, I'm on the wrong side of the world to find that at my newsagents. Thanks for editing a great podcast. Cheers, Jeff. I pretty much replied on behalf of Hot Wampa straight away. I think I was still up doing something. I was probably editing or post-production or something and sort of closing down when Jeff messaged us.
Yeah.
And I think, Jeff mentioned to me how he was surprised at all the processing the show goes through prior to release. And that made me think of something that Timothy McMahon of Less Than 12 Parsecs fame, who we know and who we've crossed over on shows with before, he recently mentioned to me in conversation that when he used to be the producer on a different podcast that he was on, the Expanded Fandomverse podcast, that for every hour of audio released, it used to take him around 4 hours of work, both in pre and post production. And I think Hot Wampa runs about the same for me, possibly longer if we're putting out something that's highly polished and produced.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, isn't it? I mean, Timothy's podcast is quite short, isn't it? But,
yeah.
The editing and audio work that goes into it, obviously it takes him a lot longer.
Yeah, possibly that's why. I think Tim himself went through a situation where he had less time in life, whether that be an increase in family or an increase in his workload and stuff. And but he loved his podcasting, so that was how he dealt with it. Basically, he cut down the length of the show. But I certainly empathise with what position he was in there, because there are times when it does feel like a bit of a mountain to get through. It's a bit like individual cover art. I mean, I was working on the cover art for this morning, and that can take 1 to 2 hours to produce. Again, it depends on the complexity of what we're trying to do. Then there's everything else. I mean, there's the research, keeping on top of the social media, which we try to do, making up our own show notes, organising and accommodating any interviews. I mean, we've done a few now. When appropriate, trying to encourage listener interaction and participation in various promotional tasks. It is a labour of love sometimes, I think, mate.
Yeah, 51 in, as we said, is a sort of success, really, isn't it? You can never underestimate how much work goes into it. But, to get feedback from people like Jeff, who are listening on the other side of the world, it makes it all worthwhile.
That's the reward. I don't think we ever expect someone to say thank you or something like that, but the thought that somebody on the other side of the globe, in a completely different continent, in a completely different hemisphere, in a completely different time zone, is listening to us babble on and all of our nonsense is kind of the reward to us, I think, in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't discourage, we don't make any distinction between any listeners or where they come from, who they are, etc., etc. I mean, to us, they're all the same. They're all equally valuable. But that's that little bit when you realise that it's worth doing it, that somebody that far away from you is listening to you. I think that's quite rewarding sometimes. Jeff was also kind enough to add his voice to the recent campaign we ran on behalf of Feel the Force Day. I mean, it's pretty obvious who that is because it's got quite a thick Aussie accent. So, but yeah, it's a great piece of feedback to get back from Jeff there. Not only interacting with us about stuff we discussed in the show, but actually talking about the production of the show, which is nice to be able to talk about that to a degree, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Sort of open a few people's eyes and stuff, and as to what it takes to put together a podcast, even if on some weeks it seems a bit wobbly.
Like a Doctor Who set. But,
yeah. It's funny you should talk about wobbly sets from Doctor Who. I went to the Star Wars themed Maze recently, and I made some commentary. I recorded a commentary as I went round the Maze. There's 2 separate mazes there. And on one of them, I compared some of the science fiction themed stuff to 1980s Doctor Who standards. We'll get onto that in a bit anyway, because we've got more feedback. We've got feedback from our London Film and Comic Con 2017 special contributors. Now, in the last podcast we did, which was a special on the recent London Film and Comic Con, we put the call out for reviews. We actually got a couple back in the email. We got one from Sophia Anastasia Martin Richardson and one from Lauren Geary, and they replied to us and gave us their reviews on the London Film and Comic Con. In addition to that, they've given us further feedback because obviously they've listened to what we've done with their reviews on the podcast, and they actually got back to us about that, which was nice. A little bit Further feedback from them. This one came from Sophia Anastasia Martin Richardson to us on the 22nd of August at 3:44 a.m. They're all early birds.
Yeah.
Or late birds. I don't know how you want to look at it. Just had a listen to the podcast and loved it. Even subscribed. Well done, Sophia. And one more listener. And you're in the show. Thanks for including my review and talking about it. Now, can you remember I got confused about the names here?
Yeah, that's right.
Because it involved 4 names. She's tried to clear me up and correct me on that, which I'm glad she did. My first name is Sophia, by the way. My middle names are Anastasia Martin, and my surname is Richardson. So I guess it's Sophia Richardson, but she uses all 4 of her names. So that's what happened there. So it's nice to be able to put myself right, really. The friend who went with me was called Natasha Aspden. Thanks again for talking about my review. Made me relive the con again. So that was nice to get that in, and we've got another listener.
Exactly, yeah, and that was such a huge event that people, as we said, probably saw us walking around with our T-shirts on, and we tried to make time for everyone, but it's such a hectic day, isn't it? So it's often nice to hear other people's points of view from the other side of the conference, really.
Well, this is it when you're producing a special. I mean, it very much was our adventure. It was our day, but the London Film and Comic Con is so much more than that and so many thousands of people. So it's nice to get different people's experiences, and then we can put out a kind of an overview, all these little snapshots like a mosaic into one picture. The next one came from Lauren Geary. She's another one that provided us with a review on the day. So it's pretty quick and simple from Lauren Geary. Came in on the 22nd of August also at 11:29 a.m. Awesome podcast, guys. Thanks for including my bit. Sounds like you had fun. I think we did, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long day. Any trip down to something like that is always long and sort of hard work. But it was good fun, I think. We got to meet Chris. Speaking of Chris Vint, we need to thank him for his support and donation towards the Feel the Force Day Just Giving Fund, which we've recently been trying to plug. We mentioned on the London Film and Comic Con special how he's probably got a YouTube video based on his London Film and Comic Con experience. Lo and behold, he listened to the podcast, contacted me and said yes he has, and sent me the link to that video. So that link I recently put up on our Facebook. So if any of our listeners want a further perspective from the London Film and Comic Con from a guy who's very passionate and knowledgeable on his subject of comics, etc. and that, I would urge you to go back to our Facebook and look at Chris's YouTube video on there where we've linked it through, because I think those people will find that quite interesting.
Yeah, and as we said on the day, Chris was sort of all over the place, wasn't he? Getting photos taken, meeting people and stuff. So we knew there would be a decent little YouTube clip somewhere, and thanks very much for him to providing it.
It's nice to be able to sort of put that further view out there. Right, Feel the Force Day updates. September the 30th, Mark.
Yeah.
Which is when Feel the Force Day is going to be held at the Kingsgate Conference Centre in Peterborough. What else can you tell me about September the 30th?
September the 30th?
Other than being the Saturday and the last day of September.
Nothing springs to mind.
No, I should doubt it would do, mate. It's also known as Yom Kippur, or as translated from the Hebrew calendar, the Day of Atonement. Okay. Which is quite fitting, as we're still encouraging people to donate to their Just Giving campaign. Not to the Yom Kippur Just Giving campaign, I don't think there is one, but certainly to the Feel the Force Day Just Giving campaign. So people can atone for the apathy we've come up against on that one and give them £1, I reckon.
Just a quid.
Just a quid. £1. Give them £1. Tick gift aid, so it's equivalent to £1.25. Like Mark said before, you'd probably find £1 down the back of your sofa rattling about in your washing machine. It's pocket change. You'd probably put it in a collection tub for a poppy. Why not give it to these guys? And tell us you've done it. £1 for a shout out on the show. That's an absolute bargain, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for the actual promote your show, your podcast, your blog, your vlog. If you're an artist or whatever, we'll feature in the show and get your name out there.
Yeah, I mean, Chris donated. Chris has been, we would have featured Chris anyway because he's a good friend of this podcast, but it's nice to be able to hype him up. And it's the same to anyone, give Feel the Force Day a donation, even if it's as small as £1, please. And you can have your own atonement. There's contrition available here. Yeah, do something well. We've also donated a Hot Wampa t-shirt for some lucky soul to win as a raffle or tombola prize at Feel the Force Day 2017. I ordered it during the week, collected it on Friday, and I put it in the post to them yesterday morning, so they should be getting it early in the coming week. So some fortunate soul has got a hell of a prize to come at Feel the Force Day this year.
I mean, can you imagine if we actually saw them walking around in that T-shirt? It would be a shock for us, wouldn't it? But I mean, for other people, the prestige, going on holiday somewhere far away and getting recognised with a hot Wampa T-shirt.
Well, this is it. I mean, going to a restaurant and all the waitresses wanting the photo taken with you and stuff like that. I mean, I feel bad that we've done this to someone, frankly. You know what I mean? We shouldn't put that responsibility and that burden on. Speaking of which, I've not seen the selfie of Dean Shepherd wearing his yet.
Yeah, that's strange, because he said he was going to send us one, right?
Yeah, he says he's going to send us one, I think, to wind up Stephen. But we've not seen it yet.
Poor old Stephen.
Yeah, Dean, if you're listening, get on with it, mate. Also, recently, I've attended the Star Wars-themed Maze. Now, I walked around there recording commentary as I walked around. There's a podcast special that I've already produced out of that. We'll be releasing that podcast special on the weekend of the 30th of September on a Saturday whilst we're at Feel the Force Day. There's a good reason for that. Today's date as we're recording this is the 3rd, I believe, of September, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, it's 3rd today.
So Sunday the 3rd. So if we record on a fortnightly schedule, which means the next time we would be due to sit down to record would be the weekend of the 16th or the 17th of September. And a fortnight after that is Saturday, 30th of September, when we'll be at Feel the Force Day. And I don't think we want to sit down and record straight on the back of going to a convention when we need to organise and sort out what we've got from a convention.
Yeah, not after last time walking through the rain. You remember that? We're
driving this time, mate. I'm not doing that again.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, no, we'll be fine. We'll drive this time, mate. So, yeah, there is a Star Wars-themed maze. I mean, we did talk about it before in local news or even in Star Wars news. I'm not sure. I guess it could have fitted in either, but we have talked about it before in a recent episode. But that will be getting released that weekend, so even though we won't be recording a scheduled or a standard episode or a special of Hot Wampa, there's at least something going into the podcast feed for you to listen to between other episodes. So we're still getting content out to you guys because we know you like that. And it's quite humorous. You've got my take on the Star Wars themed maze, what's good about it and what isn't as we walk around there. It's one of them sort of, sort of a real life thing, reality podcasting as it happens.
In the field.
In the field. Literally was in the field, mate.
It sounded like Bear Grylls or something like that.
There was a few, it nearly got to that at a few stages. I thought we were going to have to start eating the maize and various insects and grubs to get by, but fortunately we did make it back out. But I don't want to talk about that too much because, like I said, there's a podcast special on the way about it, so it won't be very long. It's less than an hour. I think it's about 3/4 of an hour. So we've got that coming at the end of the month for people to look forward to whilst we're away at Feel the Force Day on a Saturday, and then I guess we'll come back a fortnight after that with whatever we've got, whether it's a Feel the Force Day special or showcasing Feel the Force Day, etc. There'll be something on the way. So I think from my side, that's us about updated on housekeeping. I don't know if you've got anything, mate.
As far as housekeeping, it's just a case of the continuous interaction on Twitter and Facebook, really. We can always do with more, but it's nice to get even a like on a post when we put it up there. So we appreciate that. And please, as Dave's always saying, just get interacting with us, and we'll get back to you. I think we've got a really good hit rate. We normally respond within 5 minutes or something like that. So it's great if you want to ask a question, if you've got some criticism, or if you just want to say hello, please do.
I think that surprised Jeff Tilley when he messaged us, because I think he was kind of aware that it'd be coming in around midnight hour time, and it was 24 minutes past midnight. And I pretty much replied to him almost within 2 or 3 minutes. So I bet he's probably sitting there thinking, do these guys ever sleep or something? Do you know what I mean?
Are they humans? Yeah.
Are they? Well, that's questionable anyway. But, yeah, I mean, I think when you check our stats on our Facebook, I think we're like 100% message reply. We are good. And I know you stay on top of stuff on Twitter as well. And, we'll always have that feedback and dialogue with people. Yeah, like I said, I mean, you've got an idea now of the work that goes into the show. So anything shares, likes, reviews in iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, wherever you download or listen to our nonsense from, it's all appreciated. So, with nothing else for housekeeping, I guess we should move on to Star Wars stuff. Okay, we've just had Force Friday, or Force Friday 2 as it's officially being called. That's a way for fans to bankrupt themselves. I've got in my notes here, really, i.e. high merchandise prices and the overabundance of fluffy porgs on the shelves. We can't really cover it in as much detail as other people are covering it on the internet. I'm sure a lot of people are sick of seeing Force Friday stuff already. Which is strange because it doesn't sound like I'm a fan to say that, because I am a fan, but I think it's oversaturation in one go. What do you think of Force Friday, Mark, and what we've seen that's been released?
Well, I think what they call it, Black Friday, is there's a day in November, isn't there, before
Christmas? That's the one before Christmas. Yeah, that's Force Friday for me, because that's when I buy stuff, because you can normally get 20% off it.
Yeah, and it just seems that, I mean, they have created their own day.
Yeah.
And a lot of fans rush out early or camp out overnight outside department stores and countries across the world to buy the latest Lego or toys that are available. And obviously it's great for the merchandisers because they know they're going to sell it in huge quantities. But for the fans, as we are, and many people out there are, I'm not really fussed, to be honest. I'm not really fussed. You know, I'm not going to be the guy who goes there. And with the internet today, it's so easy to order something and have it arrive in your house within a couple of days that and it isn't. These things have become an event, haven't they? Where people, I was there False Friday 2, rattling on the doors at 10 to 9 or whatever, trying to get in to buy my fluffy pork or something like that.
I think there's also as well the social media aspect to that, because I think people would perhaps like to go in a queue and then they'll film the length of the queue and you can see the queue on Facebook and this, that and the other. It's kind of become a self-propagating event to an extent. I'm a bit like you, Mark. I would much rather scour the internet. A, it's less hassle. You haven't got to go out there and queue or fight for the last one, etc., etc. B, you can normally get a better deal on price, dare I say.
Yeah.
And also, I think C, I mean, you mentioned, what was it, Black Friday coming up in November. That tends to be when you can buy the merchandise, Star Wars merchandise that was released the year before for quite a good drop-down price just before Christmas. If there's anything I've got my eye on, I can honestly patiently wait a year for that event if need be.
That's pretty patient, isn't it? I mean, not every fan could do that, but yeah, you're there like a trapdoor spider just waiting and waiting. Brilliant.
The right moment, yeah.
Yeah, pop out and get it.
Yeah, I'm like the Velociraptor stalking the Stegosaurus, mate. There's one or two in there I could eat, but I've got to wait until they weaken or they're exhausted before I go in and strike. Because you always pick off the weak ones. That's the thing. There's 2 or 3 items of Lego in the Star Wars ranges that I'm currently after, but I'm not paying the prices for them.
And you better not mention them because the price will probably go up, Dave.
Knowing that I want them, yeah, or the popularity will go up. I got the First Order TIE Fighter, which was originally for sale for something like £65 to £70, and I think I brought it a year after it was released on the Black Friday for £40.
Yeah.
So it's worth waiting to me. I mean, and there's 3 or 4 items where I've kind of set a price that I think realistically it could drop to, and when it hits that price or goes below it is when I'm going to shop. And if need be, I'll wait a year to do that. And it's just a case of monitoring those prices for me. That's the way I tend to buy. Like you say, I do like my own little collection to enjoy, but I'm not going to rush out and spend a fortune to buy it. Well,
a Lego is expensive, as we said before. Was it pound for pound, similar price to gold, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
And when you look at this new Millennium Falcon, we talked about earlier, Dave, together. I mean, apparently it's got the most pieces ever assembled for a Millennium Falcon. And how many years? I mean, they must make a new one every other year, I guess. So
possibly. I mean, they've been making them now for 20 years because I've got the first one. Although my first one is just the sort of system minifigure one. It's not what this one is, which is the Ultimate Collector series. I have looked at it online because you're nosy and you're going to, and I understand that it's a Falcon that you can apply to either the original trilogy or you can apply it to the Disney sequel trilogy, however you want to do it. It's got 2 different sensor dishes. So you've got the original round sensor dish on the top that Lando knocked off in the Death Star, or it's got the sort of rectangular sensor dish that we see it with in The Force Awakens, and you can obviously swap over which one you want on it to make it relevant.
Yeah.
And it's got 2 different sets of minifigures. It's got a set of minifigures, I think, from the Empire Strikes Back era, and it's got a set of minifigures from The Force Awakens. So it's up to you which sort of era you want to set it up in. So I have had a good look at it, and there is hell and all detail in it.
Yeah. Well, It's not something I've ever considered, but
No.
maybe as a one-off, I would buy it. I'm not really into Lego. I know my wife, she likes Minecraft Lego, so I could get a nice TIE fighter to blow up a few sets, can I? So that'd be fun.
My supervisor at work is really into it. He must have thousands of pounds worth of kits. The guy's older than me. And he's planning to get this brand new Millennium Falcon, and I think what he's planning to do is to get like a glass coffee table with like a glass bottom and a glass top, and fit the Millennium Falcon between the two sheets of glass.
Yeah.
And then surround it with glass, so it's almost like a ship in a bottle, but sealed into a glass coffee table.
That sounds like a good idea.
And that's what he plans then to have in the middle of his living room. So that's what he's planning to do. But he's a big collector of stuff anyway. He's bit of a smart buy. He scours the internet for the right bargains, and I think he has got quite the collection.
I think, we spoke about it when we interviewed Guy Trussell about his Kenner collection, and it's one of those, isn't it? I think as you get older, you realise. I mean, you've got kids, Dave. It's one of those. You got a kid, Dave.
I think like I've got a whole battalion of them, like I live in a shoe or something like that.
But things like this become precious to adults as you get older. They tend to go up in the loft or get hidden away, don't they? So, to have something on display like that is quite nice.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're also seeing the sort of usual get released sort of action figures, etc., etc. Like I said, it's all quite high prices at the moment. Porgs.
Yeah.
Porgs.
You're not a fan of Porgs, are you?
No. Because I still feel like it was these fluffy porgs getting released all over the internet that distracted too much attention away from our attempts to encourage people to donate to Feel the Force Day.
I've seen these porgs. I mean, still we're speculating what they actually do. They don't look
speculated.
Like... Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't look like they could see off a sort of a horde of stormtroopers or anything, do they?
No.
Unless they trip over them. They're sort of like the... Star Wars version of Tribbles, I guess.
Yeah. I think, right, I get the impression that these things, they're a bit like a penguin or a gannet or some sort of a maritime bird, a seabird, yeah?
Yeah.
And we know Arc 2 has, well, it's the coast of Ireland, so it's similar to a lot of the coast of the British Isles, I guess. It's like green cliff faces with nesting seabirds at the edges.
Yeah, little orcs.
Yeah,
puffins. Yeah.
This is the kind of setting you can imagine the porgs would fit in, perhaps on a nest on a ledge somewhere on a cliff.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be useful, are they? But we know that's the sort of environment we've got on Arc 2, and we know that we've got porgs there.
Could it be a food source?
Nah. Well, we know that Chewbacca's got nothing to do.
Yeah.
While Rey's off getting her training.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm speculating that he's going to use these things for bowcaster target practice.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Like on a fairground?
That sounds like, yeah, because he will get bored, won't he?
These things have probably got no natural predators there, yeah, right? So an angry Wookiee with a bowcaster and nothing to do picks a few porgs off. Now, we already know there's a scene in The Last Jedi where Chewie's got a bit of a campfire on the go underneath the Millennium Falcon. Again, I guess he's got nothing to do and he's waiting for Rey.
Yeah.
Now, can you see where I'm going with this?
I can. Is it going to be like on the spit?
Yeah. Rotating away.
Rotisserie pork.
Yeah, they do look delicious. But
maybe
I'm hoping
pork pies.
Pork pies. Oh, brilliant. You'd enjoy them cold, though, wouldn't you?
You would, but I was a bit disturbed with what you said about cooking them, because I thought maybe you could have played some games like tennis with them, You could have one called Peon Porg.
Oh, dear. You're just telling porgies now.
Yeah. Or if one had a robotic hand like Luke, it could be a cyborg, but,
A robotic wing. So yeah, I'm hoping the maximum screen time they get is a Chewie's bowcaster bolt through the neck that kills over webbed feet up in the air. Porg is brown bread. The next thing you see of it, it's been dipped in flour and batter and it's turning on a spit on Chewie's campfire underneath the Millennium Falcon.
And Chewie with a mouth organ waiting for it to cook, just like that.
Rey comes up to talk to him and he's like all his Chewie stuff and there's bits of pork spitting out of his chops as he's replying to her. I think that would be the ideal use of the Porg. I still blame them for distracting people away from their trying to donate to Feel the Force Day. I have to blame something because I can't blame people, so I'm blaming Porgs.
With the Porgs, their eyes are facing forward, aren't they?
Yeah, Disney trait, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's normally the trait of a predator as well, isn't it?
Oh, right.
Because most vulnerable creatures have eyes on the side.
Yeah,
but, predators have their eyes looking forward.
Yeah, well, that eyes on the side for the vulnerable gives them good all-round visibility from the side they're likely to be attacked on. It makes sense.
Yeah, so maybe the Porgs are a bit more aggressive than we think.
You think so?
You never know.
You think they're a bit like them things in Galaxy Quest that they think are all cute when they first turn up?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You think they actually open a beak and it's got like a mouthful of vampire or canine teeth and they're ravenous carnivores?
I hope so. That would make it very interesting.
I think that's even more excuse to kill as many of them as possible then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Open season.
I'm just looking at the pictures of Porgs. There's one Chewbacca. Is this the one you were talking about? It's one of those vinyl pop things.
Yeah.
And Chewbacca is holding a Porg in his left hand.
Yeah.
So
and that's
maybe,
it.
yeah. And
it's not upside down where he holds it by the legs after shooting it, or like a brace of Porgs. There's a male and a cock and a hen Porg.
Well, in this vinyl bobblehead, Chewie's smiling, but the Porg certainly looks a bit worried. So
Good.
Perhaps you're onto something here, Dave.
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway, so yeah, if we dismiss that, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the merchandise has come out. Some of the Lego prices are ridiculous for Force Friday 2. Like I said, personally, I'm prepared to wait and get my stuff out of date, but at least then I can afford to get it or possibly even buy more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's enough time dedicated to Porgs and Force Friday. This one comes from ScreenRant.com, dated the 1st of September 2017. So this is fresh. Friday, isn't it? It's via their correspondent Stephen M. Colbert. Update: Star Wars Supreme Leader Snoke's Mega Star Destroyer revealed. I know that you'd looked up something on this as well, Mark.
Yeah, that's right. It looks quite impressive.
So there's me thinking I've got an obscure story that nobody's going to be aware of because they're all too busy talking about Porgs and Force Friday, and it turns out that you located the same story. Anyway, at least we're both sort of knowledgeable about it then, I guess. Thanks to Sphero's new app for its remote control Star Wars Astromechs, we finally have our first look at Supreme Leader Snoke's Mega Star Destroyer. So I'm guessing on this app, when you can control Astromechs, it's also gives you a way of emulating rolling the astromech or the BB unit around Snoke's Mega Star Destroyer. Something like that, possibly, I don't know. It's like Pokemon, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, Snoke's Mega Star Destroyer, the Supremacy. Until now, the ship had only been mentioned in rumours with the Mega descriptor. But the new image reveals exactly what to expect from the First Order flagship that houses Snoke's throne room, presumably serving as a roving command centre for the First Order during the events of The Last Jedi. And it's definitely not what most Star Wars fans would expect from something described as a Star Destroyer. Now then, while most of the First Order's fleet has so far mimicked the ships of the Galactic Empire that it grew out of, the Supremacy is a whole new beast. The iconic isosceles triangle-shaped dagger blade-like ships have a look that dates back to the first moments of A New Hope when Darth Vader's Devastator chases Princess Leia and the stolen Death Star plans in the Tantive 4. But in Star Wars chronology, it extends even further back, at least to the Venator-class Star Destroyer or Jedi Cruiser that first appeared in Attack of the Clones. Although that design likely wasn't wholly original, with similar designs possibly dating even further back into unknown Star Wars canon. Yeah, I can confirm that because in like the old Knights of the Old Republic games, which were set thousands of years before any of these timelines, the Sith forces and that had ships that were very much like a triangle and looked very much like a Star Destroyer. So it's kind of an ongoing theme, I guess. The design, of course, reappeared in the beginning of The Force Awakens with the First Order's updated but still wholly similar designs. Despite its differences, the Supremacy technically maintains a triangular shape, although at a far more obtuse angle than its more traditional kin, according to the app. The Supremacy is the only Star Destroyer of its kind, with Mega Class being an official designation and comes in at 60 kilometers from end to end. For a comparison, the First Order's Resurgent class Star Destroyers like the Finalizer, Kylo Ren's command ship, come in at just 3 kilometers. In fact, the numerous little triangle notches seen along the back edge of the Mega Star Destroyer are approximately the right size to fit a Resurgent class ship. Whether or not those are actual docking ports, the Supremacy is obviously more than big enough to hold a number of Star Destroyers and other ships, not to mention hordes of TIE fighters. A new image revealed by the Sphero app shows the reverse side of the gigantic ship and indicates that the Supremacy, in addition to docking Star Destroyers, can also repair and build new ships, making it even more significant part of the First Order's power. For further comparison, the Empire's Executor-class Super Star Destroyers were only 19 kilometres long, and the original Death Star had a diameter of 160 kilometres, meaning the Supremacy's size is more in common with a super weapon than it does any ships we've seen before. Clearly, the First Order has far more up its sleeve than Starkiller Base. After the destruction of Hosnian Prime and the New Republic fleet in The Force Awakens, the Resistance is going to have a tough time mustering up anything they could even dare use in an attack against the Supremacy, unless the First Order behemoth also has a singular, potentially catastrophic flaw as well. There's always a way with these things, isn't there?
Yeah, as Han Solo said in The Force Awakens.
Yeah, somebody's put a design flaw in it. It's probably going to turn out it's going to be a Galen Urso design or something. Whether the Supremacy sees much action in The Last Jedi or merely serves as a home to Snoke and Kylo Ren when they're not engaging Luke, Rey or the rest of the Resistance isn't quite clear. New leaks have given us a more clear picture of the overall plot, but many details have yet to be revealed, and The Last Jedi is bound to save a twist or two for the theatre. You've seen images of it, haven't you, Mark?
Yeah, it looks like a giant flying wing, doesn't it? It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the shape of it, I think it's sort of more akin to like a B-2 stealth bomber or something like you say. It's not quite the sharp triangle, is it?
No.
More of a wedge shape, perhaps?
Yeah, and I mean, the size of it, 60 kilometres, is amazing, isn't it?
Well, if that's in length, what is it in width?
Exactly.
Because it's, like you say, it's quite broad. Yeah, I mean, that's a serious piece of kit. If the Resistance comes up against that, they're going to have problems with it. Now, I've seen video hints that there might, and this is just a theory, okay? So
yeah.
This isn't canon. We're not saying this is going to happen. If you look at some of the green screen when they're doing some of the fight training and stuff from that behind the scenes mini reel they recently did on The Last Jedi, you can see Kylo Ren taking on several people in a fight, not just up against one person.
Yeah.
And it looks like these people, the actor, not Kylo Ren. These people are armed with staffs as opposed, and he's got like a lightsaber prop. So I'm wondering if these people with staffs are supposed to be what's the new Royal Guard, or as they're officially being called, the Praetorian Guard.
Okay.
The guys in red, I mean, I think you've alluded that they look a bit more like a samurai in terms of like the sort of fringe skirt being part of the uniform and sort of the curved shape of separate pieces of armour and stuff, that it's sort of a samurai vibe to the way these guys look.
Yeah, exactly. And they I mean, just in the pictures, they look more nimble than, sort of Imperial Royal Guards with the long sort of gown.
Well, that cape thing that they had on, that must be pretty much a hindrance to fighting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd assume so.
I mean, if you were going to have a scrap, that would have to come on. But these Praetorian Guards, they look a bit more practically armed, don't they? You know, I mean, not just that they're a ceremonial guard, that they probably could bust a few moves while wearing all this gear.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's a power play and Kylo Ren goes to take on Snoke.
Yeah, maybe his conscience, something like that. He's a bit upset about something.
Or conscience, or the Sith's own rule of two. Once an apprentice is strong enough, the apprentice overthrows and kills the master.
Yeah, that's true.
And becomes a master. That could merely be speculation. I mean, that fight scene could be perhaps from a flashback where he's taking on the Guardians of the Wills or Jedi or something.
Yeah, and as always the case with the Star Wars films, we do tend to overcomplicate them with our own beliefs and thoughts, don't we?
Yeah.
And the stories tend to be more linear in the end.
Yeah. I mean, we've just written something so far where a load of Porgs suffer genocide, and Kylo Ren tries to lead his own coup against the First Order. I think the actual film itself is going to be much more simple, don't you?
Yeah, probably.
It's a shame. Somebody should hire us as writers. So we've got a new Star Destroyer. That'd be interesting to see if that gets taken out or not. If it is going to get taken out, it's going to take a fair degree of resistance firepower, or perhaps an internal effort to do it. We also know that we get to see Finn disguised as a First Order officer. Is that what he's infiltrating? I mean, there's a lot of speculation about it. What do you think about the presence of a new Super Star Destroyer, Mark?
Well, I think in Force Awakens we saw a decent amount of ground vehicles, things like that, didn't we?
Yeah.
The First Order, So yeah, I think we all knew that Snoke was somewhere else, and perhaps that he needs a temple in a way, and this craft is that, where he can move around the galaxy, sort of checking up on what's going on.
That his home or his homeworld almost is like a mobile ship, like a generation ship.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't have a homeworld anymore.
Maybe there's a large part of it that's segregated and dedicated to worshipping the dark side, or that he wants to keep separate from the sort of First Order military structure throughout the rest of the ship. Maybe they, like you say, Starkiller Base, the planet itself has been destroyed. Maybe this is like a mobile headquarters, or as effectively, it's a homeworld for the First Order.
Yeah, similar to the Emperor, I guess, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the Emperor had Coruscant, which was the galactic capital from where he ruled. But I mean, you've got to think of in this time, the First Order has kind of evolved from elements of the Empire. The Empire's taken a right kicking and probably been kicked off through popular uprising or via rebel activity on many of the worlds that it occupied and governed. So could it possibly be that this is their safe haven? I don't know, something like that. Interested to see how it gets used, but I've got a feeling that, like you say, we often read too much into it, and it's just going to be a big, impressive ship.
Which it is.
It's the Spinal Tap amplifier of Star Destroyers. The Superior, or whatever it's called, takes it up to 11.
What else you got, David? Have you got any other Star Wars pieces?
Not really.
I've seen a nice reveal for the new Empire magazine front cover. It's a holographic cover for The Last Jedi, and it's just Rey's hand with the lightsaber she was holding at the end of The Force Awakens, and you've got Luke's sort of robotic android arm and looking to receive it. And that comes out in the UK and I guess around the world, because I know that magazine is distributed around the world, on the 7th of September. So that's their October edition.
That's an Empire.
Empire magazine, yeah, appropriately.
Do you think they'll rename that to First Order magazine?
They should do, shouldn't they? Yeah.
Yeah. How do you mean holographic? Is it like embossed? Is it something like one of the old holographic badges or stickers are that you sort of move it and it shimmers and changes its perspective depending on the angle you look at it? How do you mean by holographic?
Yeah, so I believe that'll be the case, that you'll move left to right and you'll see the lightsaber going towards the other hand, probably.
Oh, I see. So it's almost like a very simple sort of animation in the way you perceive it.
Yeah, there's probably a special Porg edition as well where it moves towards the fire.
Turns on the spit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be in the magazine I edited. Yeah, I mean, sort of these sort of magazines, it's a bit like the whole Vanity Fair thing, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of Last Jedi imagery is coming out now. There's a lot in terms of film posters, isn't there? I mean, there's that series that The Last Jedi, the colours of The Last Jedi seems to be a lot of red against a white background, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does seem like sort of almost the Japanese sort of manga era, that kind of thing.
And we've already discussed with the Praetorian Guard as they're being officially called a sort of possible samurai influences and stuff. Yeah, it's one of the things, like we said, I mean, this film is probably going to be far simpler than we're speculating it is, but I like the way it's looking, so, and we're certainly looking forward to catching up with that. Anything else for Star Wars? BB droid thing you mentioned earlier, didn't you? Yeah,
so we got a new BB droid, which is like First Order BB, isn't it?
Yeah. The head on it's a slightly different shape to BB-8, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if we were a half-decent podcast, we would have researched this and have a BB number designation that we could quote, but as we are kind of busy, we haven't done it. But yeah, we've noticed it as well. There's several animations out there which show BB-8 kind of going up against this thing and what have you. And I think this particular First Order ball droid, as it were, I mean, it's also available as a minifigure in a couple of the new upcoming Last Jedi sets. Is it going to have a key role? Possibly not.
No, it might well be that BB-8 just sort of meets it in a corridor somewhere.
Do you think so? You don't think they're going to have a scrap sort of droid on droid action here?
I mean, it would be quite difficult for a BB unit to have a scrap, wouldn't it?
Well, they'd just bump up each other against each other, then bounce back, wouldn't they? It'd be like it's a knockout.
It probably sounds like how Porgs make love. It's sort of like just bounce up against each other.
That'd be like when you're drunk at the sort of village show and you're having a fight with your mate in a fat suit, wouldn't it? If two of those things went up against each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's how I know. Like I said, its shape is its head shape is slightly different to to BB-8. So we have noted that as well.
This one's called BB-9E.
BB-9E, there you go, professional in the end after all.
Yeah, and there's a few videos of, the ones that you could control by smartphone.
Yeah.
There's one of them coming out for Christmas, I believe. So that'll be one that will be top of people's Christmas list again, like BB-8 was a couple of years ago.
So you can sit there having it rolling around your living room with your iPhone.
Yeah, scaring your cat.
Yeah, while your granny's trying to watch the Queen's speech or something after dinner, and you're sitting there with that thing trundling through all the wrapping paper doing laps of the Christmas tree.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Rebels.
Yep.
Season 4 is coming up, isn't it?
That's right. And we've had, I think, the final trailer for that, haven't we?
I haven't seen any of the trailers for Season 4 of Rebels yet. I've only just caught up with watching the tail end of Season 3, to be honest. I'm a bit like with merchandise. I'll wait till it's a bit cheaper or it's being broadcast. Yeah,
so it's coming out in October, so, people are getting excited about that. You usually watch it, don't you, with your daughter, Dave?
Yeah, and sometimes. Her tastes are a bit bizarre,
Yeah.
Because I thought we'll try this, when introducing her to Star Wars, I thought we'll start her on the Phantom Menace, yeah?
Okay.
Because in terms of the story chronology, I don't mean the order the films were made in, but in terms of the story chronology, that's back at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And also with the elements of the CGI and things like Jar Jar Binks and the Gungans and having a couple of kids in the film and the humour side of C-3PO and all the rest of it, I thought it might appeal to her a bit more being 7 years old.
Yeah.
Put it on for her on one Sunday afternoon, right? So we're going to sit and watch this together. I was a bit mindful that perhaps Darth Maul getting cut in half might be a bit mature for her, but I thought, no, she's a sensible kid. She's emotionally mature for her age. She'll handle it. So I put on the Phantom Menace for her, yeah? Within about 10 minutes of watching it, she was bored and playing Guess Who with my mum, flicking it down. Has he got a moustache? Has he got a hat? Has he got glasses? So it didn't really take to her. So I thought, right, fine. So a week later, I decided on a Sunday afternoon just to put The Force Awakens on and watch it, and not to show my daughter, but just to stick it on and watch it on the sofa sort of thing for the Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And she came in the living room, she sat down cross-legged in the middle of the carpet and sat there and watched the film the whole way through.
Right.
And I would argue that The Force Awakens is more mature than The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, but you've got a strong female character in The Force Awakens, haven't you?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
So maybe she related with Rey and, I guess... I don't know if she would have realised that it was more modern than the Phantom Menace, but obviously we know chronologically it is. But yeah,
who knows? I mean, I don't know. So she used to sit and watch the Clone Wars and stuff with me, but she's not so much into that now. And when I've watched Rebels, I've struggled to get her into that or get her to know the characters, kind of thing. I mean, she'll know when a character from normal Star Wars, like Vader or someone like that, pops up in Rebels, she can identify them, or R2-D2, or she knows who they are, but she's never really sat and taken the same sort of degree of interest in it as what she used to in the Clone Wars, I don't think.
Well, Rebels Season 4 premieres Monday, October the 16th on Disney XD.
I think they'll follow it up with another animation of some sort. I think they'll just look to do it in the sequel era, because that's where Disney is now.
Yeah, and they're not going to sort of just give it up, are they?
No, I mean, I think they'll keep Dave Filoni in a job. He's done both the Clone Wars and Rebels. They're both very good. They've both kind of matured to a better place as the series has gone on. You've seen that steady improvement. So certainly looking forward to that and seeing how it ends. I mean, we know some of the ships and characters from Star Wars Rebels even get a nod in Rogue One.
Yeah.
So, we know some of these guys ain't going to buy it. But it'd be interesting to see what the destiny is of some of the characters in Rebels and how that ends up. About all we've got for Star Wars, I think.
Just one more, if you don't mind. There's a picture of Luke in dark robes, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this." Getting more like Harry Potter. These films are getting darker and darker, etc.
Yeah.
But when you look at Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker was back in black in that, wasn't he? So yeah,
it's sort of classic Jedi type clothing, but like you say, it's black. It's black in its appearance. Would the Jedi even recognise the Sith as part of a greater fourth faith? And if so, would they? Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like, to me, the Union Jack is a symbol of the United Kingdom and the nations that make up the Union Jack. If anything, it's a flag that symbolises a degree of unity, yes?
Yeah.
Of different people in a union, in towards a greater cause. However, there are unsavoury and ugly elements on the far right that have hijacked the Union Jack for their own use, yeah?
Yeah.
Which, to me, it doesn't symbolise what they say it symbolises. To me, it's everything to be proud of for what I think it symbolises, but I don't agree with what they think it symbolises with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And I'm wondering if it's the similar sort of thing for the Jedi with the way they dress, that the Sith have adopted a certain style of Jedi dress, but that the Jedi do not endorse the way the Sith use it. Therefore, it's possibly up to the Jedi how they dress in the theme. I don't know.
Mm.
It's that the Sith's use of Jedi gear is a misuse of what that Jedi gear actually stands for, or an abuse of what that Jedi gear actually stands for, and therefore he's still got to wear his dark clobber.
Well, as we speculated before with the trailer, that Luke looked sort of dejected, and does he want the Jedi, or does he want to be a part of it anymore? He didn't look too happy about it, did he?
Well, I think he's a bit dispassionate, he's a bit despondent, he's perhaps a bit indifferent now because of how the cycle repeats over time, and now he's played his part in that tragedy. He's been involved in a degree of it. Is Luke no longer the light or the dark? Is he the grey? I mean, he's
or the beige, yeah.
The beige, the khaki. Is he in a position now where he's, obviously he can't abandon his connection to the Force any more than you or I could abandon our connection to our eyesight or to our hearing or to our own abilities. But is he in a situation now where he doesn't believe in a specific doctrine? Is he the grey as opposed to the light or the dark?
Yeah, and as the last remaining Jedi, he's got a duty, hasn't he, to sort of the upkeep of that.
He has, but he attempted to have an academy with all his students, which Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren went and slaughtered. So is he thinking, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because there's this historic cycle. I mean, his father did the same. He rose up and he ended up on behalf of Palpatine slaughtering Jedi younglings and being part of Palpatine's overthrow of the Republic, and via that extension of the Republic, the Jedi. Is there somewhere, is Luke saying, look, this merry-go-round is crazy and I'm getting off it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think I think when you see Rey present Luke the lightsaber at the end of The Force Awakens, the look on his face isn't someone, oh, thank God, it's not like he's seen an old friend that he dropped down the sofa 20 years ago and he hasn't been able to find it since. He realises what it is, but he's still hesitant to take it because possibly of what it symbolises.
Yeah, I'm with you. We'll carry on to speculate about this, and there's plenty more to come, I'm sure. But let's hope we see a more happier Luke Skywalker in the next trailer.
Well, I think it's not just about having to train Rey. I think in the process of training Rey, he's going to have to try and rediscover himself and find himself again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you say, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But then again, that'll probably be far more simpler than what we've just speculated.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should we get on to Showcase?
Showcase, let's do it.
They are on an express elevator to hell. Going down. You are listening to Hot Wampa.
Time for my pre-recorded nonsense as always. Starship Troopers is a 1997 American satirical military science fiction action film directed by Paul Verhoeven and written by Edward Neumeier. It originally came from an unrelated script called Bug Hunt at Outpost 9, but eventually licensed the name Starship Troopers from a science fiction novel by Robert A. Heinlein. The story follows a young soldier named Johnny Rico and his exploits in the Mobile Infantry, a futuristic military unit. Rico's military career progresses from recruit to non-commissioned officer, and finally to officer against the backdrop of an interstellar war between mankind and an insectoid species known as arachnids. The only theatrically released film in the Starship Troopers franchise, It received negative reviews from critics on release and grossed $121.2 million worldwide against a budget of $105 million. The film was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects at the 70th Academy Awards in 1998. Verhoeven says his satirical use of irony and hyperbole is playing with fascism or fascist imagery to point out certain aspects of American society. Of course, the movie is about let's all go to war and let's all die. In 2012, Slant magazine ranked the film 20 on its list of the 100 best films of the 1990s. Plot. In the 23rd century, humanity has become a spacefaring civilization. While colonising the new planets, humans have encountered an insectoid species known as arachnids, or bugs, with their home being the distant world Klendafu. The bugs appear to be little more than savage, unrelenting killing machines, though there are suggestions that they were provoked by the intrusion of humans into their habitats. In the Federation, citizenship is a privilege earned by performing such activities as military service, which grants individuals opportunities prohibited to basic civilians. Johnny Rico, his girlfriend Carmen Ibanez and best friend Carl Jenkins attend high school in Buenos Aires. Fellow student Isabel Dizzy Flores is in love with Rico, but he does not reciprocate. They all enlist in the federal service after graduation, despite Rico's parents disapproving of military service and wanting him to enroll at Harvard University instead. Carmen becomes a spaceship pilot assigned to the warship Roger Young, while mentally gifted psychic Carl joins military intelligence. Rico enlists in the mobile infantry and is surprised to find Dizzy has deliberately transferred to his squad. In mobile infantry basic training, Career Sergeant Zim trains the recruits. Rico is later promoted to squad leader after showing initiative and quick thinking during training exercises, and befriends Ace Levi. He later receives a Dear John letter from Carmen, as she desires a career with a fleet, and now serves under Rico's high school sports rival Xander Barklow. Following a live fire training incident that kills one of Rico's squad and causes another to quit out of guilt, he is demoted and flogged. He resigns and calls his parents to ask them if he can return home, but the call is cut off when an asteroid launched by the arachnids obliterates Buenos Aires, killing his family and millions of others. Rico rescinds his resignation and remains with the mobile infantry as an invasion force is deployed to Klendafu. Due to overconfidence and lack of reconnaissance, the first strike on Klendafu is a total disaster, with hundreds of thousands of casualties. Rico is severely wounded in the leg and mistakenly classified killed in action, causing Carmen to believe he is dead. Rico recovers and along with Ace and Dizzy is reassigned to the Roughnecks, an elite unit commanded by Lieutenant Gene Raznak, Rico's former high school teacher. Rico is promoted to corporal after destroying a tanker bug and impressing Raznak. After receiving some free advice from Raznak, he finally reciprocates Dizzy's love for him. The Roughnecks respond to a distress call from Planet P, where they reconnoitre an outpost that has been devastated by bugs. The distress call is a trap, and the arachnids swarm the outpost. Rico, now acting sergeant, euthanises a mortally wounded Raznak after a buried bug bites off his legs. After a bug stabs Dizzy in the torso, she dies in Rico's arms as they are rescued by Carmen and Xander. Rico and Carmen reconnect and encounter Carl, now a high-ranking intelligence officer, at Dizzy's funeral. Carl reveals that there is a reason to believe an intelligent brain bug is directing the other bugs and has been learning how to fight against humans. He field promotes Rico to lieutenant and gives him command of the Roughnecks, ordering the mobile infantry units under his control to return to Planet P and capture the brain bug. As Rico's Roughnecks join the mission, the fleet encounters unexpectedly heavy fire from the bugs, and Carmen's ship is destroyed. The escape pod, carrying Carmen and Xander, crashes into the bug tunnel system near Rico. Carmen and Xander are surrounded by bugs, including a brain bug, which uses its proboscis to pierce Xander's skull and eat his brain. As it is about to do the same to Carmen, She cuts off its proboscis with a knife Xander had given her. Rico arrives and threatens the bug with a small nuclear bomb, which the brain bug recognises. They are able to leave while the brain bug makes its escape. Arachnids pursue them, and Watkins, mortally wounded, sacrifices himself by detonating the bomb to kill the pursuers, whilst the others escape. After returning to the surface, they find that former Sergeant Zim, who had requested a demotion to private so that he could serve at the front, has captured the brain bug. Carl congratulates Rico and tells him and Carmen that the humans will soon be victorious, now that military intelligence can study the brain bug. Carl psychically scans the bug and reveals it is afraid, to the cheers of the assembled troops. A propaganda clip is shown, starring Carmen, now a captain with her own command, Ace and Rico as model servicemen, encouraging viewers to enlist in the Federation's armed forces. Starship Troopers, Mark. 1997 Starship Troopers. Again, this is a bit of a golden era of cinema, because not only did we have this, we had things like The Matrix, etc. came out the year after it. This is around the time when CGI and visual effects going into films was, well beyond the level of what we'd seen prior in things like Tron and stuff like that. I mean, this is at the level that it was cinematic and video quality. Verhoeven film Starship Troopers, and classically so. I mean, many people argue it's the sort of tail end of the Verhoeven sci-fi trilogy, if you will, starting with RoboCop, going through Total Recall, and ending where we are with this. And it's very much in the vein of Paul Verhoeven's previous efforts, wouldn't you say?
Well, it definitely matches up well with RoboCop, doesn't it? With the propaganda.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I like this film, and I'm not coming in too early with that. I think it's certainly disposable. I think from the beginning, you don't really care about any of the characters, even Johnny Rico or Casper Van Dien, because the way the military has been set up in this is everyone's expendable. It's all everyone wears nice uniforms, is very polished. You're sent to war and you're proud to do it, and you're probably not going to get out of it alive. So, yeah, but a really good film. And as you say, the special effects are wonderful.
It's that same sort of satirical look on a society that we got with RoboCop, with the various, like you say, the propaganda, or it's portrayed as news clips, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
This is British Pathé for the 23rd century or whatever, isn't it? But, it's a bit darker than that. Yeah, I think so. I think in this future world, right, this future universe, service guarantees citizenship, yeah? And it seems to me that you need to have citizenship to do some of the most very basic freedoms or liberties, to help you apply for a license to have children yourself. Yeah, in this future world, you need a license to have children, yeah? In order to entitle you to vote, to exercise political authorities, you need citizenship, which again you can gain through military service. Two ways of looking at that. That's the carrot and the stick, and that's the reward for your military service. It's not just a career as such. It gives you it makes you a full person in a society, person of authority. You could also argue that in this future, it's so overpopulated that, like you said, life is cheap anyway. If there's a major war, does it matter if a few thousand, a few million people get killed? It's a few less people that the planet's has to support anymore, or society has to support anymore.
Well, I know it was something that Robert A. Heinlein believed in, that people should contribute more to society and serve their country before they got the rewards of benefits and things like that, And I had to check. I wasn't sure if he was German or American, of course. So with a name like Heinlein, but he was an American science fiction writer, wasn't he? Also responsible for the Puppet Masters, which is quite similar to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of his philosophies have survived in the film from his original novel, but with a Verhoeven slant on it. So it's interesting. They were probably poles apart politically, but Verhoeven is quite left, I believe, left-wing. Mm-hmm. And he liked to show, Robert Heinlein's beliefs and what he's portrayed in the book, but kind of put a bit of a satirical slant on it.
Possibly. I mean, it's almost mocking what Heinlein's come out with, if that's the case. I mean, if Heinlein was possibly using his original story as a vehicle almost for his own political views, almost as if Paul Verhoeven is then presenting the same story, but with his views. And in doing that, is he kind of mocking Heinlein's original story to a degree? Is he making fun of it?
Well, there's certainly a lot of... I mean, you only have to look at the uniforms and they sort of smack
very
of,
fascist, isn't it?
Yeah, SS, stuff like that, and very, very nice uniforms. I mean, they look well turned out. Of course, we've got the eagle, is one of the symbols of the, of the troopers. So, I mean, this, I was surprised because we were speaking earlier briefly about the critical response to it was pretty savage in some areas, wasn't it?
Yeah. Initially, and I think we both think it's a watchable film.
Yeah, almost the same as with RoboCop, really, that it wasn't violence for violence sake. It was violence just to show how the stupidity of war in this case.
Or how lunatic it has become, or certain mentalities have become, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to the uniform thing, there is a correspondent. If you look at the way the Roughnecks, the mobile infantry, the enlisted soldiers, their sort of dress uniform, when we see them at Dizzy's funeral, it's a very basic grey shirt, a black tie, grey slacks, and a beret. Looks very similar to the way that the Hitler Youth were dressed.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's almost like this. You see these different classes across the main characters in the film. We take Denise Richards' character, the one that joins the fleet. Her uniform looks slightly more like perhaps you would expect a Luftwaffe officer's uniform to look, along those lines.
Yeah, they do look well turned out, don't they? When they're on actual starships.
Yeah. And now you take it to the other friend that they go to high school with, the guy that ends up as the colonel or whatever, his intelligence.
Yeah,
he looks like he's... is it Carl or
Neil
something?
Patrick Harris. Yeah, Carl Jenkins.
Carl Jenkins, that's it. With the sort of long leather trench coat and the sort of peaked cap and everything. I mean, he almost looks like he's ready to go on trial at Nuremberg the way he's dressed there, doesn't he?
Yeah, because Neil Patrick Harris played Doogie Howser, that awful. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't like it. Where he was a junior genius doctor, wasn't he?
Doogie Howser, MD.
Yeah, but. Apparently on set they called him Doogie Himmler because of the long sort of trench coat that he was wearing.
Yeah, it's not coincidental, is it? It's a direct influence in the look of this film, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's too close to be otherwise.
And I mean, he's sprinkled this cast with some stars. I mean, if you look at Michael Ironside,
brilliant actor.
And we loved him in Total Recall. Obviously, he was in Scanners and V, if we go back as well.
Yeah. He's good in everything. He's even good in Top Gun.
Yeah. And was he Jester? Is it in Top Gun?
Yeah, that's right. Tom Skerritt played Viper, didn't he?
Yeah, and I mean, Top Gun isn't one of my favourite films, but he's good in it, I must admit. Yeah. And he could play the villain really well, couldn't he?
Yeah.
But also in this, you're rooting for him, so...
Well, he is the leader, but he's an honest soldier, though, isn't he? I mean, he's not going to unnecessarily expend his soldiers' lives, but he still realises that part of his job might involve expending his soldiers' life. And because he comes across as such a serious character, I think there's a bit in the film where there's that... When they go to that outpost, don't they, and it's been abandoned.
Yeah.
And they first find evidence of the brain bug because they find like a signals operator at a console or something, and he's got like a hole in his skull where the thing's sucked its brains out.
Yeah.
I think I had a girlfriend that was like that once. And they find that guy, that general guy who he's been hiding in the cupboard, hasn't he, throughout the attack? Yeah. And he comes out and he's going a bit doolally, and there's a bit where Michael Ironside picks his rifle up, and you really think, actually, that's Michael Ironside. He could do it. He could just shoot this guy there and then. So what he does add that sort of slightly psychotic authority, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If he said that he was going to shoot someone or do something, it's not like, you believe, actually he's capable of doing it. You've got to give the guy, he's a bit like Michael Hogan as Sol Tai was in Battlestar Galactica. If he says something, you've got to take him seriously.
And I mean, the other one was Clancy Brown, who played Sergeant Zim. And he's a great character, isn't he? A great character actor. If you look at him in Highlander and The Shawshank Redemption, a couple of films I've written down here.
Is he Kurgan?
Yeah, he is a Kurgan.
Yeah.
And of course, Michael Ironside was the villain in Highlander 2.
Yeah.
So you got both villains from Highlander in this on the same side. But Clancy Brown, his voice overwork is amazing. You know, he voiced Lex Luthor in a lot of the animated Superman cartoons. And it was also in a film that always comes up for us, which is Buckaroo Banzai in the Ninth Dimension. Uh-huh. He was in that as well with Peter Weller and numerous other actors we've spoken about in the past. But Clancy Brown, he has a sort of authority, doesn't he? And he is a bit intimidating on screen.
He makes a good drill sergeant, I think. Yeah, again, he's a bit like Michael Ironside. There's no messing, but he's dealing more with enlisted men at a lower level, and he will do whatever he has to get them to a certain standard. You get the impression that he's not setting out to deliberately harm these guys, but he's putting them through the rigours to make sure that they're capable of going into what they've got to go into.
And of course, he's the hero of the piece at the end, isn't he? So.
As Private Zim.
Yep.
Because he gets demoted so that he can return to the front lines.
Exactly.
Yeah, a sort of guy you want on your side.
But with the rest of the cast, especially the younger members like Casper Van Dien, Saved by the Bell, Tarzan and the Lost City, Dizzy Flores, Dina Meyer was in Johnny Mnemonic, Friends, Star Trek Nemesis, Saw. Carmen Ibanez, Denise Richards, she was in Saved by the Bell as well. Doogie Howser, interestingly. James Bond, which James Bond was it she was in?
World Is Not Enough.
Yeah, and Dr. Christmas Jones, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And it's that classic line that I thought Christmas came only once a year. Good old Pierce Brosnan. Yeah. And also she was frolicking about in a swimming pool with Neve Campbell in Wild Things, which was a fairly good movie at the time. So yeah. And, which probably where Showgirls and Paul Verhoeven got that awesome scene in the swimming pool. I don't know if you remember that. Awful film, Showgirls. But after Showgirls, he pretty promptly moved back to Holland, I think. So
yeah, slightly more liberal filmmaking.
Yeah, a young cast who hadn't really done much and hadn't really been in major films or television. Did you recognise Arlie Ermey in this?
No.
He was a voice on the speaker when they arrive for boot camp.
Okay.
So that's a nice little Easter egg. He's the voice as one of the drill sergeants on the speaker. Of course, he's got a decent lineage when it comes to drill sergeants after Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket, etc. So
okay,
yeah.
No, I like the character of Zim. He gets a bit of a catchphrase of medic for a while, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because when he first defeats Dizzy in that sort of punch-up, it's medic. When he explains why they're learning to use a knife and he puts that knife through the ace character's hand, it's medic, etc., etc. Yeah. I mean, he shouts medic quite a lot, doesn't he? Yeah,
that was Jake Busey, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who looks very much like Gary Busey. And there's a Predator connection there because obviously Gary Busey is in Predator 2 and Jake Busey is in the new Predator film that's probably coming out next year, The Predator.
Okay.
I don't know if he's playing the son. That'd be interesting.
The actress that plays Dizzy?
Yeah, Dina Meyer.
Dina Meyer. Why haven't we seen her in more?
She kind of went B-movie. Yeah. You know, have you seen Saw?
No.
No, she was in like 3 or 4 of the Saw films.
Right.
And it was that sort of splatter porn stuff. You know, people liked a bit of gore in the late 90s, early 2000s, didn't they? So
yeah.
But I mean, Friends is obviously huge. So, and Denise Richards was also in Friends in the 90s. But like Dina Meyer, Denise Richards' career sort of really gone down south, and she's ended up in a lot of straight to video movies and stuff like that.
You don't hear so much of her now. The reason I say this, I mean, everyone kind of focuses on Denise Richards as the female lead in this. And to me, she seems a bit soft and a bit Disney.
Yeah.
Dina Meyer in this, man, she smoulders.
Yeah, and that
she's absolutely gorgeous in this. Well, I don't just mean that, but just the look in her face and the angles of it. She's a Jesus, man. I sat there watching it Friday afternoon thinking I could get a statue made of this woman. No, honestly, I think she does. I think she looks great in this.
Yeah, going to the shower scene, I'm not going down the obvious route here, Dave.
Yeah.
But it was her suggestion, and she dared Paul Verhoeven to do it in one take.
Yeah.
And he agreed, and he got it done. And it was her dare, basically, that led them to do that. So
Yeah. Do you know what another part of the dare was?
No.
That Verhoeven himself had to be naked while he directed it.
And was he?
Yes.
Yeah, he's Dutch. Of course he was.
He stuck to his word there, and that was how it panned out.
As long as that's all he stuck to. I can imagine. I'll show you would like me to go naked in the showers and film you in the showers. I can just imagine him, from a Dutch accent. Funny guy.
That's nothing to him. That's the Dutch equivalent to EastEnders to him, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Why we haven't seen her, I think, in more sort of mainstream stuff, I have no idea, because I think she's absolutely ravishing in this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, 20 years ago, I'm sure she's still working in probably. There's a lot of police dramas, etc., on television, isn't there?
No, I looked her up. She was 28 when she made this.
Yeah, she's 48 now. That's right.
Yeah.
1968. So yeah, she's done a lot of work, and I'm sure she'll never go without work. But perhaps not hit the heights that you suggest there, Dave.
Yeah, shame. I think personally.
Well, she's this year there was another Star Wars Starship Troopers sequel, Traitor of Mars.
Right, and is this all done via CGI?
I don't know. I haven't seen. No, I think this is actual live action.
Is it?
Yeah.
The reason I ask is because obviously I was trawling through the internet like you do in your search terms, and I was looking up Starship Troopers stuff for material to bring to the show today. And I came across a couple of YouTube trailers that are all done via computer animatronics, and it looks like it as well. You can
absolutely. Yeah, you are right. It is CG. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I think the character of Rico is back, but he now looks a bit more grizzled, and he's got an eye patch.
Right.
I'll tell you who he looks more like now, Kurt Russell.
Does he? Snake himself.
In this CGI incarnation, I just imagine in real life he's probably still a bit of a Colgate pretty boy, But in this thing, he looks like a bit grizzled, like he's been through it all. But yeah, Digi's back in that, so quite how she's supposed to have survived this thing. Yeah,
and Carmen Ibanez is in it as well, but she's played by a lady called Lucy Christian, not Denise Richards, so they obviously did pick up the phone and contact her.
Yeah. This is in the future. I mean, these kids come from Buenos Aires, which, as we know, is in Argentina. Yet I believe at one time they talk about Rico's character going, instead of doing military service for his citizenship, actually going to university at Harvard as part of the film. In this future world, do nation states no longer exist?
And maybe destroyed by war or global warming or whatever. But yeah, certainly, population of America seems to have moved south. So
yeah, or whether that's the case, or whether this is the population of Argentina as part of some new world order where everyone's the same. Because I don't know. I mean, if this was Argentina, could you imagine them adopting American football over football?
No, not at all.
No way. But that wouldn't happen in a million years, would it?
No, soccer is the way.
Yeah, okay, we're not going to get into that, but all the same, I think I know which way Argentina would go if a choice between sports, don't you?
Yeah, certainly football.
So I think that feels a bit clumsy, and that wouldn't necessarily be the sort of culture we would expect to see in a Buenos Aires high school. However, I buy into it because I feel like this is the future, and possibly there isn't nation states, and that everywhere around the world is a bit of a mashup of everywhere else, all in one meal, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's set in 2197, isn't it? So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe.
So I buy it to a degree. I can dismiss that.
The film was nominated for one Oscar, wasn't it?
Visual effects.
Yeah, and who was the main guy behind them?
Was it Phil Tippett?
It was his friend from RoboCop. Yeah, so they joined forces again.
Yeah, also the guy that did work on the Dejarik table and various other creatures in the original Star Wars movie. So he's had a good and long career. I mean, everything he's done pretty much has looked good, I think.
Yeah.
The only problem I've ever had with Phil Tippett's work is when Ed 209's trying to get down the stairs.
Yeah, and the noises he made when he's on the floor.
I like the sound design.
Yeah.
In this film, I think the sound design, there's too much going on to pick any one thing out. I mean, you've probably got massive battlefields with thousands of mobile infantry troops, thousands of bugs, or as they're officially classed in this, arachnids, which isn't an insect, is it? Because an arachnid's a spider or a scorpion. It's an 8-legged creature, I think.
That's right, or a tick. So so arachnids is a strange name for this creature. But
so you've got all these animal noises, all these people noises, all this movement, all the sound of different firearms and weapons, etc., going off. So the sound design on here, I mean, if there is anything special or specific, it's so deep in the mix, you don't really pick it out, I don't think. It's just kind of generic noise, isn't it?
Yeah.
But having said that, there's nothing in it that puts me off. There's no major faults in the sound work to a degree. The score doesn't really stand out to me.
No, I couldn't remember it if you told me. Yeah.
No, this isn't a score that's like Interstellar or something like that has recurring themes or famous bombastic scores like you'd get in the Star Wars movie, or even something that's sort of like a Silvestri score to Predator with their sort of repetitive military themes and ethnic themes.
Yeah, the drums. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing in it that really says, you know what, I need to buy this soundtrack album because I really like it. To me, it feels a lot like a generic score. That really, I would say, is the only problem I have with the film is the soundtrack, the music to it.
Yeah, you would have thought.
And that's not that it's bad. It's just that it doesn't jump out as good.
Yeah. There's some other music in there, isn't there? I know that David Bowie's "I Have Not Been to Oxford Town" is used. I think Jake Busey's character Ace plays it on a violin, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he actually learned to play the violin just for this film. I'm always skeptical when I read things like that, because when you say you learned to play the violin, you probably learned to play one song or something like that, right?
Well, he learned as much as he needed to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't suppose he's given, he's put the dicky bow on and then playing to packed opera houses his violin performances.
Yeah, probably not. I've got a few facts here. You might have them as well, Dave. A miniature Millennium Falcon can be seen on the back side of one of the Starship's bridges. Seems like every sci-fi film pops in a miniature Millennium Falcon, doesn't it?
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
No, I haven't. I haven't seen it like eye for eye, but look out for it if you watch the film. But back after listening to this, Paul Verhoeven confessed to never finishing the novel as it was a very right-wing book. So he had to ask the producers what happened in the end. So he didn't get through it.
It was so politically opposed to his own ideology that he found it too distasteful to get through.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, it's interesting what you said about Dina Meyer, because in the original book, Dizzy is a man.
All right.
But I mean, you wouldn't bat an eyelid at this, would you? She does such a good job, and even if you knew the novel, it wouldn't matter.
To me, she will always be Dina Meyer, I'm afraid.
Apparently, when this was made, more ammunition was used in this film than any other previous. So
right.
It's a lot of fire and a lot of bullets fired. And when you look at the records in the previous Verhoeven films, it's quite impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant Willie is played by Stephen Ford, who is the son of former US President Gerald
Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that.
I guess a lot of, when you look at Ronald Reagan, there's quite a few politicians stroke actors, isn't there?
Yeah. All politicians are actors.
Exactly.
Yep.
Some of the sets used were walls from Total Recall.
Uh-huh.
So wobbly walls, used again.
Works all right, though. I don't pick it out.
Fine.
Yeah.
No. The battle gear that was worn was later reused in Power Rangers and Firefly, the episode where they do the train heist. So
okay.
It's quite good. What else? The line "You Want to Live Forever" was also used in RoboCop. I think it was Emil who says that in RoboCop. So it's like maybe trying to create some kind of Verhoeven trope that goes in every film, but I don't know if it's in Total Recall. Cyrano, Carl's pet ferret, was originally scripted as a frog. So I think a ferret probably works better, doesn't it?
Well, frog intelligence.
Yeah, and I mean, the ferret, at least it can do a bit of acting, I guess.
Doesn't it go upstairs and run up his mum's leg at some stage or something?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that would have worked quite so well with a frog.
The actual mobile infantry are also called cap troopers.
Uh-huh.
They're called cap troopers because they used to arrive at the planet in a capsule. So they would just be like shot into the planet, and the capsule would open and the troops would just get out.
Yeah, That makes more sense, because I think mobile infantry, mobile to me suggests armour.
Yeah.
Or some sort of land vehicle, or, APCs or something like that, modern cavalry, some way of moving these guys around, a mechanised method, something like that. But I suppose mobile infantry, you make the really they're airborne, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
They come in on a drop ship from orbit and perform their tasks a bit like the old colonial marines do in Aliens. I think there's a lot of similarities there, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And this is 11 years later, but still, obviously, Aliens was influencing filmmakers. And yeah, I would certainly marry this with RoboCop in terms of the propaganda scenes.
Yeah.
And they are very similar for you. I guess this is a bit more black humour, a bit more dark, but it's more fun than Aliens in that way. Aliens, I guess we took a bit more seriously than this.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't graphically back out this film. It's not a children's film, is it?
No, it's not.
You're seeing guys getting picked up and split in half. I like the different blood colours you get on the different bugs as well. I think it's just a matter of paint, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Oranges and greens. And how much killing do these things take? I mean, how many rounds do some of them take before they stop them?
I know, it's like, kind of like Terminator, I guess. Like, in present day, the weapons we have aren't good enough, and it seemed that way with some of the bugs, didn't it? No matter how much they shot them, they didn't really break up and die quickly. Yeah,
I mean, it is quite a graphic film. It's not a comfortable film. It's not something. This ain't the Phantom Menace. I wouldn't let my daughter just sit and watch this anyway.
It was rated R in the States, released 7th of November 1997. And in the UK, the BBFC gave it a 15.
Really?
But then after review, they actually upgraded it to an 18. And I think when it was released on DVD, it was an 18 rather than 15, which it was at the cinema. So
now that's very surprising. I don't think it's got an excessive use of crude language or crass language as such, has it?
I don't remember that much bad language. I just remember multiple limbs being pulled off.
Well, this is it. And obviously there's a couple of quite explicit scenes.
Yeah.
Nothing serious, is it? I mean...
No, the shower scene, Dave, isn't like sexual in any way, is it? It's like
everyone's of course not.
Just sort of getting changed and ready. And men and women in this time just don't really look at each other like that, do they? They're all
I don't
soldiers.
Know if it's that time or if it's a military thing. It's a bit like uniform. It's to degrade everybody to exactly the same level, so not one of them's better than the other, kind of thing.
That's right.
I mean, that's one of the basic principles of uniform. It erases social class, and therefore by erasing social class, it erases a form of bullying and prejudice and stigma and preconception, because it makes everybody at the same level.
Yeah.
That's why the military does that, is to then build them up as a team. So that isn't too much of a stretch to me, but all the same, it is showing you more than you would normally see before the 9 o'clock watershed, even though I think it's done quite practically and quite tastefully.
Yeah. And
but all the
now
same,
I'm going to watch it and think of old Paul Verhoeven standing in his birthday suit. So.
Exactly. And like you and me, I mean, I think we're both of the same opinion. That scene isn't sexual.
No, it's not.
I think it's shot tastefully, but to the Mary Whitehouses of this film that watch it, it's still flesh on show, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So I'm surprised it still got away with that theatrical run as a 15 or what have you. Graphically, it's good. I think the story, while isn't that complex, is fine. I think there's a lot of big political statement coming from Verhoeven in this film, and he expresses a lot of that through satire. Would you like to know more, etc., in this new world order he's created here? It's not going to win an Oscar, but like you said yourself, it's good, it's watchable, and it throws up a lot of interesting, I think, topics and debate.
Yeah, it does. A lot of criticism came from Holland at the time, because Paul Verhoeven made a film called Soldier of Orange in 1977. Mm-hmm. And it was about a group of friends who trained and grew up together, but due to war, they went to various areas of the country and were reunited at later stages. And basically, a lot of critics in Holland said this was Soldier of Orange in space. So it's basically the same film, but, it's more budget thrown at it.
Orange is a colour we typically would associate with the Netherlands anyway, wouldn't we?
Yeah, William of Orange and stuff, yeah.
Which, obviously goes back to the Protestant Reformation, and has further political implications in places like Northern Ireland with the Orange Order, and et cetera, et cetera. Also, with Verhoeven, as we know, being Dutch, and we know that the Netherlands were occupied by the Germans or the Nazis during the Second World War, do you think there's possibly a statement there? I mean, that's an experience we wouldn't be aware of, and we were never occupied.
Absolutely. I mean, he even said that himself, that, you know, it was up to him to put on film, you know, how he felt living in an occupied sort of country. So, you know, and he understood a lot of the USA audience wouldn't understand that, but he would try to sort of show it as best as he could. Yeah,
it's brave, I think, of Verhoeven in some ways. But
you might be surprised by the body count in this. Do you know it?
Is this what we actually see, or just suggested death in the film?
Okay, what we actually see.
What we actually see, I would put at 100.
It's 256.
Okay, but it's not astronomically high, though.
No, I mean...
the suggested count in the film isn't the original invasion of Clendafu, or the Big K, as it's known amongst the soldiers there. Isn't that something like 150,000 dead?
That's right, yeah. And
it's ridiculously high, isn't it?
Yeah, and they talk about that incident, don't they, and how many died.
Yeah, but then again, in this future world where we're possibly looking at overpopulation, I mean, people need to apply to a license just to have children themselves, etc., is, you know... Have human lives become more expendable? I mean, it's not like we haven't got a few more stashed away.
Yeah, that's right.
But for God's sake, don't risk Dina Meyer at the front lines.
Yeah, there's also some scenes. The fort defense scene contains many references to Zulu.
Right.
And there are even direct lines like, "We're all going to die, fire at will, and fall back into the compound," filmed along with similar camera angles.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, it did seem like a siege sort of at one point, didn't it? So
Zulu was a bit more hand to hand, though, wasn't it? It was a bit more sort of bayonet fighting and stuff. Which, I mean, I guess you couldn't really do that in this, because these things would just win straight out, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I mean, I can see that correlation. That sort of a small group of soldiers defending a fixed position, sort of, you know, all round defence around that position, and hordes of enemy that are relentless towards them. I can see where that comes from. I guess, you know, on balance, we need to look at giving it a score.
Yeah, do you want to go first, Dave?
Well, we need to consider that from critics, it received a negative response initially. However, it obviously was effective enough to spawn 2 sequels, even if those sequels were practically TV movies or direct-to-DVD movies, which themselves were very poor in quality. I have this thing about Paul Verhoeven films, yeah?
Yeah.
Only Paul Verhoeven can make Paul Verhoeven films. Don't try and remake Paul Verhoeven films, because the remake of RoboCop wasn't received as well as the original, was it?
No, and even films like The Hollow Man.
Yeah. Total Recall wasn't perceived as well as the original, was it?
Total Rehash.
Yeah. And this, with these direct sequels, I imagine weren't Verhoeven vehicles either, and they weren't as good as his original. I think the only person that can out Verhoeven is Verhoeven, and I don't think anyone should have a go at remaking or sequeling anything Verhoeven does. I think let him do it, because he's got the knack of it. Like you say, it received a critical panning. I don't think the problem is with the film. I think it's with people's understanding or concept or open-mindedness to the film.
Yeah.
I don't know where critically it stands today on ratings on things like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb. I know that you're much better gelled up on that sort of thing than I am. Have you got an idea at all?
Yeah, it's about 7.2 on IMDb at the moment.
Out of 10?
Yeah.
So we're assuming Rotten Tomatoes, it's probably one of them 70-80% approval jobs?
With Rotten Tomatoes, it does slide, depending on how many people are talking about it or watching it.
Okay.
So I assume it would be a bit lower, but
possibly 50-60 range.
Yeah, let's have a look. 1 second. Yeah, but I was about to say about that L, his latest film. You know, he has returned to form, albeit like a smaller movie, lower budget stuff. So it's well worth a look if you get a chance.
It's still classic Verhoeven, is it?
Yeah, it is, and it's twisty and it's interesting, and in some ways it's quite a feminist film as well. So interesting that, you know, he would make such a movie like that.
No, I think he's probably quite progressive.
Yeah.
In some ways. I mean, in some ways he's too far to the left. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being progressive or forward thinking or trying to make an example out of the lunacy or stupidity that you see out of certain situations. I think he's a good bloke to do that. And I agree with a lot of the statements he makes.
So, Starship Troopers, 63% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the
Yeah.
audience score 69%. So,
Okay. I think it faced a lot of negative reviews and criticism, I think, because it was poorly understood and people weren't able to enjoy it for the spectacle. I think the aspects that it received criticism for really are thought pieces more than the actual action and stuff, which you can't fault in the movie.
yeah.
And I think that's down to an individual and how you interpret that. Whether you interpret that as being in line with what you think or what you don't think is irrelevant. Overall, I will give the film a healthy and respectable 8 out of 10.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to agree with you there, Dave. I think for entertainment value. Of course, as I said earlier, it is a disposable film in a way. You could just watch it on a Sunday afternoon and enjoy it, but you wouldn't be thinking about it too long after.
No.
But yeah, it's well put together and it does make you want to pop RoboCop on a bit later, probably.
Yeah, because you want more of the same sort of flavour.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said, the only person that can do Paul Verhoeven is Paul Verhoeven. I think that's as much as we can get out of it, really, don't you?
Yeah, and of course, if listeners want to send their reviews to us, we'll read them out, and if you agree or disagree with us, please let us know.
Please do. I mean, that's not topic for argument, but it's always great to put a broader perspective on it. As that's all we shed, really, is a perspective.
Yeah.
So, really do open it up. I mean, food for thought. I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's a much better film than, for a lot of different reasons, than the initial appraisal of the movie, personally. That's just the way I feel about it. Anyway, guess this is a standard episode, and you know what that means.
Local news?
Oh, yeah. Again, a bit like the Chinese airliner that the lady was throwing coins into the engines of, this one isn't what you would call strictly local, but it's certainly local in spirit. Okay, this is from the IFL Science website. Now, I don't know how credible the IFL Science website is as a news website, Mark, but it hasn't got a date or a correspondent listed. As you know, I always try to quote them if I can. They weren't on this particular article, so how credible it is as a piece of news media, I don't know. But let's have a run through it. Hitchhiking robot is decapitated and left in a ditch after just 2 weeks. Okay. This summer, one small robot should have had a big adventure. It is my sad duty to report that the United States adventures of HitchBOT, the Canadian hitchhiking robot, have come to an untimely end 2 weeks after setting off for a final destination of San Francisco, California. While HitchBOT had travelled across Canada, I mean, let's not forget Canada is a vast country in terms of geographic size.
It's huge. Was it the largest coastline in the world?
I don't know. It's probably the largest country in terms of its geography in the American continent, I'd have thought.
Yeah.
Has travelled across Canada and Europe, coming to no harm. The hitching automaton was found vandalised and destroyed beyond repair in Philadelphia this month. Canadian journalist Lauren O'Neill tweeted a photo of the broken robot's vestiges. I mean, that's no use for audio podcasts, but basically, HitchBOT's in pieces, yeah. He looks a bit like the Sand People I've gotten around C-3PO. You know, his arms and legs are all over the place in the bottom of a ditch. Decapitated and with limbs removed, the remains are a reminder that HitchBOT's sightseeing expeditions were an experiment to see how people would react and interact with a travelling robot in society. It sounds to me like it was all going pretty well until it hit Philadelphia. HitchBOT's trip came to an end last night in Philadelphia after having spent a little over 2 weeks hitchhiking and visiting sites in Boston, Salem, Gloucester, Marblehead and New York City, wrote David Smith from McMaster University and Falk Zeller from Ryerson University on the HitchBOT website. Unfortunately, HitchBOT was vandalised overnight in Philadelphia. Sometimes bad things happen to good robots. We know that many of HitchBOT's fans will be disappointed, but we want them to be assured that this great experiment is not over. For now, we will focus on the question, what can be learned from this, and explore future adventures for robots and humans. On the kindness and helpfulness of strangers, HitchBOT travelled over 10,000 kilometres, or 6,213 miles, through Canada, and spent 10 days travelling through Germany earlier this year. HitchBOT is survived by a large family of researchers, friends and supporters. HitchBOT Mark, the hitchhiking robot. Basically, yeah, I guess this university's knocked up HitchBOT, yeah?
Yeah.
And they've put him out on the side of the road. And I like to think of HitchBOT as a bit like a message in a bottle, or these things these days when people will try to send something around the world. I think it was a social experiment to see who would stop, pull over and give HitchBOT a lift further up the road, and to see how far a robot would travel under these circumstances. It's almost like a social study, isn't it? It's looking at people's attitudes, perhaps, behaviour.
Well, and today, I mean, we're looking at a lot of television and film criticising the robots will rise up and take over and stuff like that, you know, so
yeah.
How people interact with machinery. I have got some questions, though, about the actual thing.
Yeah.
How does it get into a car? You know, is it easy to... Because this thing's going to weigh quite a lot, I guess.
Yeah, have you seen any pictures of it?
Yeah, I saw... You sent me the link, didn't you, the other week? So I just wonder about that kind of thing. And how does it tell you where it wants to go, etc.?
Uh-huh.
So the logistics of it is what gets me wondering.
I don't know, maybe it's just got an open note in one of its hands that says, I've started out here, I am trying to get here, please take me as far as you can in your journey and then drop me off safely at the side of the road for the next person. Perhaps it's some sort of open message on it. Yeah,
and you want it to be like Johnny Five on the tracks, would you? Like Short Circuit, that kind of thing. That'd be difficult to get in your Renault Clio, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that it came to an untimely end out at Philadelphia. Somebody had obviously, it spent 2 weeks in the States getting from point A to point B. I mean, its ultimate objective was San Francisco.
Yeah.
It started out in New York. So, obviously throughout these 2 weeks, people had been picking it up and transporting it across the United States with them, dropping it off for the next person to do so. For some reason, it ran into trouble at Philadelphia. Yeah. So what happened? Did somebody unload it at Philadelphia, ready for the next person who was prepared to take it further? Some bunch of yobbos come along and basically decapitated it, smashed it up and chucked it in a ditch. Now,
that's more likely, yeah.
I have a theory as to why this is. Because this university that designed HitchBOT, I mean, if you look at it, it looks pretty benign and pretty rubbish as robots go, yeah?
Yeah.
This looks like something that's been made out of a fairy liquid bottle, a couple of your mum's marigolds, rubber gloves, a bit of plastic fencing or something. It doesn't, it looks pretty benign and friendly, HitchBOT does. This thing doesn't look like a Terminator chassis or something like that. And I think it's kind of a victim of its own success, because I think the fact it looks pretty benign and, let's face it, rubbish. I mean, the 1980s Doctor Who robot would look better than this thing in terms of authenticity. But I think they've done it deliberately to make it look quirky and friendly so that people are going to be more amenable towards it.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was like a Terminator exoskeleton or Red 209 or something, you'd probably be less likely to pull over and offer it a lift.
Well, he did have a bucket list attached to him as well, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah, and there's like a load of different things he wanted to see and be dropped off at.
Okay.
Yeah, and see the lights in Times Square.
Uh-huh.
Pose with the Lincoln statue.
Uh-huh.
Tan at Myrtle Beach.
Right.
Explore the Cloud Gate in Millennium Park, Illinois.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to get to if there's anything here in Philadelphia. Right. Do the wave at a sports game.
Okay.
I guess the Mexican wave, as we know.
Yeah.
And yeah, but nothing about Philadelphia. So maybe someone took exception to that and decided, well, if we're not on the list, we're going to take your head off.
Do you think so? It's like a mafia thing. Oh, yeah. Our city's not good enough. Well, we're going to make sure you visit Philadelphia, even though it's not one of your waypoints. Well, it sounds like HitchBOT hit a hitch in Philadelphia, decapitated and smashed up in a ditch. But, I mean, my point is, I think if they'd made it look more like a T-2000 or something like that, so it looked a bit more fierce and a bit more menacing, the people that then picked it up to do HitchBOT harm, so to speak, perhaps wouldn't have even stopped for it if it didn't look so friendly. But then if it didn't look so friendly, would have got lifts.
Well, it had those green Wellington boots on, didn't it?
Green Wellington.
Yellow Wellington boots, yeah.
Yeah, it's got yellow marigold gloves on it. I mean, it does look a bit rubbish and a bit too friendly as robots go, and I think possibly that friendliness has carried it, but I think also it's possibly been its undoing in the end, because it kind of stood out like a target, I think. Yeah,
it was no Metal Mickey, was it?
No, well, even that looked rubbish though, didn't it? I don't know. How would you design your travelling robot?
I honestly think it should have like tracks on the bottom or something like that.
Johnny 5. Is that where you're going with this?
I think so, yeah. At least it can move around.
Shoulder-mounted laser turret?
Yeah, there's one here punting somewhere. Maybe that's in Holland he's punting.
Yeah.
But he had a good life, didn't he?
What, HitchBOT?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Done more travelling than many people.
What,
Holland,
decapitated in a ditch in Philadelphia? Yeah, I've been all over the world. I still don't want to end up decapitated in a ditch in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is there to see in Philadelphia?
I don't know. I didn't even know it was a place. I just thought it was a form of cottage cheese. Yeah. It's a sandwich spread. Wasn't it a Tom Hanks movie?
Yeah, with Denzel Washington and Antonio Banderas, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I've not seen it. Yeah. Bruce Springsteen song.
Yes, right. I know. Is it the Liberty Bell is in Philadelphia?
I don't know. I'm not really. And HitchBOT now, it would seem.
So, do you think they asked him where he was headed?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I can imagine, because its sort of head is sealed inside a transparent. Oh God, how would you describe it? Like a transparent bowl, isn't it? It's like a square head inside a transparent bowl with what looks like a bird's table on top of that.
Something a beekeeper would wear.
Yeah, and I can imagine this thing sitting in the front passenger seat of a car and a driver sort of like saying, "Oh, hey, where do you want to go?" or etc., etc. And I can imagine the whole body on this thing staying static, but the square head actually rotating inside the cylinder thing, facing the driver and sort of, I don't know, muttering out Salem or Gloucester or wherever, like a really rubbish robot, and perhaps its eyes light up and flash in time with its words.
Interesting, Dave. Philadelphia does have a Cherry Hill.
Does it?
Yeah.
What? Ours almost certainly came first, though, didn't it?
Of course, it must have, right?
It must have done.
Looking across the river, or Delaware River, there's a town called Haddonfield, and I think that's where Halloween was set.
Okay, so it's that neck of the woods.
Yeah, I think so.
Huh, fascinating. What do you think it says about the social experiment that was HitchBOT? Obviously, it travelled to a degree on goodwill.
Yeah.
Maybe that says something good about people, that they were prepared to be part of a greater thing and saw no harm in it. And so, yeah, I'll drop it along the road. Maybe that says something good in terms of a social experiment about the human race. But what about HitchBOT's untimely ending? What about his execution, or whatever you want to call it, in a ditch?
I guess probably people were interested. And then, when they got to the bottom of HitchBOT and realised it wasn't that fun to play with, they just decided to take it apart. So,
oh dear. I can't help thinking that the legacy of HitchBOT is greater than what we're reading about here. There's a movie about HitchBOT's abduction, right? His attempted rescue that fails by Navy SEALs, and his eventual execution in the Philadelphia ditch, like a hostage movie.
There is a film in this, I think.
You think so?
Yeah.
A bit of a comedy effort, like a Simon Pegg thing or something like that.
Yeah, My Life with HitchBOT, or Adventures with HitchBOT. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be like the littlest hobo crossed with Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, something like that. That's really all we've got on HitchBOT anyway. And the other one is certainly local in origin, kind of. But maybe had its other origins further away than HitchBOT could ever imagine to reach, as I just said. This one's from the good old Edy Standard newspaper, that verifiable publication without which this section of the podcast possibly couldn't even exist. Dated 10:52 a.m. on the 30th of August 2017 via their correspondent Seb Pearce. So getting back to serious journalism here.
Okay.
Have aliens landed in Finland? Group claims ball of orange light spotted in Chatteris could be a UFO. Did you spot something unusual over the skies of Chatteris last week? The East Anglia UFO group would like to speak to anyone that spotted anything strange in the London Road area between 9 and 10 p.m. on Wednesday, August the 23rd. A witness has told the group he saw a ball of orange light fall to the ground before 2 military jets flew over the spot very slowly as if to observe. A spokesman said, I guess this is a spokesman for the East Anglian UFO group, the group are currently researching a particular incident that occurred near Chatteris and surrounding fenlands, and would like as much information as possible. The East Anglia UFO group has an office in Littleport and holds monthly meetings in Newmarket which are open to the public. The volunteer group is headed by retired local businessman Tony Buckingham. For more information, email Tony at eaufo.co.uk or call Tony on 07528 311 608. Tony Buckingham's no stranger to us. We've interviewed him on here before about local ufology, haven't we?
That's right, yeah. And it's interesting that they're investigating. But, I mean, this kind of incident, other than interviewing people, what more can you really do?
It's recording statement, I guess, time, location, and what it looks like, and any other occurrences that happened around it. The description is interesting. A falling ball of orange light, right?
Yeah.
When we talked to Tony, and when we interviewed Tony, I got the impression, didn't we talk about a sighting out near Acre Fen, which sounds very similar to this? And
that's right.
Acre Fen is in the sort of generic sort of Chatteris Doddington area. I'm not 100% sure where it is, but I think it's out that way somewhere. And this guy had claimed that he'd been seeing these things for years, and it very much sounds like a very similar thing to that. Plus, we've also heard of additional sightings in March, etc., etc. Could this sort of Chatteris, March, Acre Fen, the sort of generic area, could this be something of a UFO hotspot, do you think?
Well, it could be. I mean, this sort of area, bleak as it is in certain times of year, we do seem to have a number of sort of sightings quite often, don't we?
This could be the epicenter of the Fen Triangle.
The Fen Triangle, yeah.
So we've just penned a term there, Mark. Get on to our legal people. We're keeping that.
Yeah, I'm skeptical. I'd like, as we were talking with Tony,
I think you've got to be, though.
Yeah.
I think it's an intelligent and logical approach to be skeptical.
There was a time when I was younger, I probably would have really liked to believe it was true, but until you actually see it yourself, it's difficult, isn't it?
But you could see this yourself, and you could be misidentifying something that's completely terrestrial or slightly more pedestrian in its explanation, couldn't you? Well,
and I know you're a rational man, and you would definitely think about all the possible options first, wouldn't you?
Well, of course I would do, but then I'd still be fascinated by the fact that there's a mysterious element to it, and who isn't?
Yeah.
It's human nature to spot intrigue and be interested in what we don't understand, isn't it? As opposed to what we can explain or try to explain what we don't understand. It does seem to me that this area is turning into something of a hotspot. Why Chatteris?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an area I know very well. Obviously, perhaps travelling to Peterborough and that, you would sort of go through there, wouldn't you? I don't know. Tony Buckingham, obviously, he runs these regular meetings, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see the stats, how many sightings have been in Chatteris in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, I nearly asked him for comment on this, but I was a bit late in getting organised and putting it together because I'm sure he would have been prepared to say something about it. Why Chatteris? Was there some sort of historic aliens thing on the go here? Like they set up an experiment in Chatteris thousands of years ago and they're coming back to see the effect on the population today?
Yeah, I can imagine it has had quite an effect on the population today.
Landed in Chatteris, found no signs of intelligent life and decided to leave.
Have you ever been out in Chatteris, Dave?
Yeah, but I won't be again after making that statement.
I don't blame you. Stay away now.
It's a rough place. I'll tell you, HitchBOT wouldn't have made it out of Chatteris. If he'd started there, he'd have been in a ditch straight away. Well,
this story has been covered on. It was on the Cambridge News, Fenland Citizen, Wisbech Standard, Cams Times. So it has been taken seriously by a vast amount of our local media.
Uh-huh. So I also took opportunity of the fact that it was on all those pages to spam them with our own UFO special. We interviewed Tony Buckingham.
Yeah.
So I thought,
why not? That's a good idea.
Well, it kind of ties in with it, doesn't it? given the time of day between 9 and 10 p.m., that could be out. If we say 9 o'clock, say sundown, dusk now, what is it, about 8:30?
Yeah, something like that. It's getting earlier, and obviously we've had a few cloudy days recently, haven't we?
Yeah.
But are you suggesting it might be a reflection of the sun or something like that?
It's a ball of orange burning light falling to the ground around dusk.
Yeah.
What does the sun do, which is a ball of orange burning light, do around dusk? It goes to the horizon.
Yeah, and the sunsets around here are pretty spectacular, but also they can
big
be
skies,
quite unusual, can't they? So
yeah, big skies, no obstruction, sunsets around here, especially on nights when you get low grey cloud, they're amazingly beautiful things to observe.
Yeah, and I would question if they're any better anywhere else, because I've certainly seen a good few on a train back from Cambridge to Ely. Between Water Beach and Ely, you see some lovely sunsets.
Yeah, it's an amazing sort of landscape for that. We have to assume that whoever witnesses is obviously, they know what a sunset. Perhaps there was something about its motion that was different. Perhaps it was quicker, or it seemed to move in a more drop-down fashion. I think it's interesting. There is a story in it. Before 2 military jets flew over the spot, we have seen quite a lot of military traffic flying recently, haven't we? Sort of F-15s out of Lakenheath, and we've even had tornadoes going up again recently, which we don't see that so much these days, but we used to at one time, but they are flying over the area again. And that these jets then jets flew over the spot very slowly as if to observe. Could it be that a military aircraft or something is misfired or deliberately fired as part of an exercise of flare?
Could possibly be, yeah.
And that would be dropping there could be a lot of rational explanations for this, couldn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
as always, Dave. But we like to keep it open to interpretation, don't we?
Of course we do, but I think you have to be, the only intelligent way to come at it is skeptically, because then you start to dismiss what it could have been, and you start to explore the possibilities instead of just sort of jumping in, and we think of the old meme, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens type thing.
The closest one was it RAF Witten or Witten?
Witten,
that's the closest one to Chatteris.
That's sort of out near St Ives way.
Yeah.
That way, sort of between Chatteris and St Ives. You're right, it's on that old Huntington Road going down there.
Yeah, so that would sort of fall in with your theory.
Again, there's light aircraft that fly there from there today. Could it be a navigational exercise that drop flares? Or could it be an aircraft dropping flares as part of wind or weather measurements or something? There's a lot of, explanations that I guess you could dismiss it to, but then you've got to fact pick it and took it apart. Obviously this looked unconventionally enough for people to report it as something different.
Certainly last weekend we saw some hot air balloons at that time of night. In the night sky over that direction from where we look. So, if they're landing and you could see the flare from the gas.
Yeah,
maybe,
the burner possibly.
Yeah, and what about drones taking pictures from the sky? Could be something like that.
Yeah, it could be, or just an illuminated drone. If you wanted to pull a hoax, a drone would be a great thing to do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and Chinese lanterns, as Tony said, often get mistaken, don't they?
Yeah. It certainly sounds quite interesting, though. I always like this sort of thing. Like I said, why would aliens want to visit Chatteris?
I know nothing about Chatteris, so I can't.
You're being a bit more politically astute than I am.
I don't know. Maybe they've got a good takeaway. I don't know.
They've got several. Climb over the bodies outside. You can possibly go in and get yourself a pancake roll.
Yeah. Well, if you're from Chatteris, if you've seen anything mysterious.
Yeah, if you're in what we've penned a term tonight, and we need to get onto our legal people about this, the Fen Triangle, Chatteris March Acre Fen. If you're in that generic area, keep your eyes peeled to the skies and let us know if you see something that doesn't look right. Or inform the East Anglian UFO group, because they'll catalogue it and they'll interview you properly, unlike us, which will probably look to ridicule you or see what we can find out about it. But it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating. It's the unexplained sort of aspect of that. Another little bit of local Fen legend, along with a Fen tiger and black shark.
Well, I think we certainly have to go and look up the UFO group and go to one of their meetings. I think it'd be quite interesting.
What, a Newmarket?
Yeah, just one-off sort of meeting.
Wasn't one of our listeners going to do that?
Yeah, I spoke to Steve Martin recently, and he wanted to do that. I actually met him at the Minster Quiz on Thursday night. They came second, we came third, I think. Okay. He's part of the Kovani Taliban.
Yeah.
but they win every week, so it was quite a relief to see them come second this week.
Okay.
But yeah, we should send Steve Martin over there, see if he comes back.
Well, he doesn't get abducted.
Yeah, you never know.
Get his analysis. Yeah, so, if you're a local sky watcher and you've got something like this to report, let us know about it. Bridge strikes, there's been so many recently, there's no point in even talking about that.
Yeah.
We can't keep up with it. It's like Forced Friday, there's too much of it going on.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of tourists driving sort of Winnebago type things and they're smashing into the bridge. It's happened a couple of times recently, isn't it? So.
That's what a lot of it is at the moment. It's sort of mobile homes and caravans, that kind of thing, isn't it? Camper vans, those kind of things that are currently hitting the railway bridge quite a lot, as opposed to Tesco home delivery vans and the usual fare that normally smacks into it.
Yeah. Well, obviously this time of year there's a lot of geese and swans looking to depart the UK.
Yeah.
So, be careful, I guess, for low-flying drones and things like that.
Consider the local wildlife.
Maybe it was a flaming swan or something like that,
It's been hit by a drone and shot down. What's on fire?
Yeah, do you remember the local news story about the train window smashed by a swan, wasn't it?
Yeah, it went into the train, didn't it, or something?
Yeah. So,
okay, well, maybe we should extend that to any extraterrestrial visitors. Be wary of migrating birds if you're coming down in our skies this time of year to anally probe people or whatever it is you come here to do.
Yeah.
Be aware that we do have these birds that overwinter here that, come from south, and we'll get birds that will migrate as far afield as Africa away from the UK. So if you're flying your flying saucer or what have you through our skies, then just be aware of the local flora and fauna, really.
Yeah,
we know aliens listen to the show because we've got the download figures, but we don't get a lot of interaction, so that's kind of what I'm starting to think it possibly is.
They're just not speaking our language.
They're not speaking our language, yeah, and it's going to take us thousands of years to get a reply, and it'll be in binary, and it'll probably come out in picture form.
We'll end up like Bill and Ted with statues on some far-flung planet somewhere
that we've never heard of.
Yeah.
Along with Dina Myers. Let's say this is a contact scenario, right? We know since for over 100 years, we've been blasting signals out into space with radio and television and so on, yeah?
Yeah.
And we have to assume that someone at the other end would have the technology to decode and view what we're sending them. And well, let's face it, we've sent them some right rubbish in terms of EastEnders and reality TV and stuff. I mean, they probably were a peaceful race, but they probably would want to wipe us out now after the crap we've sent them. We know that Hot Wampa gets listened to in different territories and countries around the world.
Yeah.
Some of that relay is done by radio from satellite, yeah?
Yeah.
So alien intelligence could have intercepted and be listening to our show.
Interesting.
So if we put a message to ET, what do you think their reply would be? If it was a picture form in binary, once we decoded it, what do you think it would look like?
It would probably be HitchBOT decapitated.
The trouble was they received it in Philadelphia and thought it was instructions. Oh dear. I don't know what else we could get out of this week, to be honest.
I think we squeezed this week's lemon, haven't we?
I think it's well and truly dry, I think.
But, I mean, I know you've got a lot of good local news stories coming up, and, we're going to carry on. We've got lots of stuff coming up soon, haven't we? So
yeah, we've got loads of stuff coming up. Another standard episode then in a fortnight, the weekend of the 16th and the 17th. Showcase suggestions, I think, really. Shall we put that out and give them until the weekend?
Yeah, that's a good idea, because, they always come up with some interesting suggestions.
Or if not, if we don't get anything, possibly research Quatermass a bit and possibly look to do that, seeing it's been given a mention.
Yeah, because, perhaps we could cover Quatermass and the pit and, the radio show. We could sort of put it all under one umbrella or something like that.
What do you mean a radio show?
There was like a radio broadcast on it as well, wasn't there? So
Quatermass?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, so, we could sort of put it all together and talk about the lot, because the films aren't very long either, are they? So
yeah, it wouldn't take us long to revisit them and make notes on them, would it?
No.
Although I'm sure, considering, there's probably some interesting stories around the productions and stuff. Oh, that's what we'll do. We'll put it out for a week, yeah?
Yeah.
And we'll I don't know, next Sunday or whatever, if nobody's gotten back to us, which is highly unlikely they will do, we'll look to showcase Quatermass in the next one, shall we?
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
We'll have a look at that and decide how to do that. Whatever Star Wars news is current at that time. Local news will be something from our backlog of lunacy, which we're currently waiting to talk to you about. And that's about it, really.
Yeah.
Keep in touch. Don't be scared to share our links about reviews on iTunes, etc., etc. It's appreciated. You've got a comprehension now of what it takes to make the show. So anything like that, we consider to be our thanks. And like I said, it really was touching to get contacted by somebody from the other side of the globe who's a listener. It's that's mind blowing. I know with today's technology, that's simple to do it, but in a way, that was really touching.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we think, possibly, if you're an alien listening to us, stop tormenting Chatteris and be wary of migrating birds. Yeah. And, leave HitchBOT alone. If anyone's got any information regarding what happened to HitchBOT, call Crime Stoppers or something. Let's get some justice for HitchBOT.
For HitchBOT.
That's the thing. We could conceivably have a listener in Philadelphia. Get out there and solve this case for us if you are.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where we are. Anything else, Dad?
No, that's about it, really.
Yeah. Okay. Let's wrap it up for another fortnight then.
Okay. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.
We need you all. Service guarantees citizenship.